At dinner time, the school wasn't in charge of arrangements, so Meng Huai casually gave the students freedom to explore the nearby food street. The school wouldn't cover their expenses if they chose to eat from the street vendors, but for those looking to save, there was a small restaurant nearby where the school would foot the bill. Despite their previous habits of frugality, even the tightest students like Jiang Tianming and Wu Mingbai weren't interested in cutting corners this time. After all, they'd learned something exciting about the nightmare beasts earlier, and with their newfound optimism about future earnings, they were ready to indulge. As they left the hotel, they divided into groups. Jiang Tianming, Wu Mingbai, and Zhao Xiaoyu planned to cash in on their gains, while Ai Baozhu and Lan Subing weren't feeling hungry yet and decided to shop. The others went to enjoy their meal, but not Zhou Renji, who was sulking in his room. Si Zhaohua promised to bring him something to eat. When they arrived at the food street, the irresistible scent of spices and grilled meat filled the air. Skewers were the ultimate street food, but Si Zhaohua wasn't a fan. With a raised hand, he declared, "I'm not eating these roadside snacks. Su Bai, keep that skewer away from me." Su Bi, casually twirling a skewer, teased him with a sly grin seriously. Had he never tasted street skewers before? She pointed out that even the ones served in restaurants came from open grills. Si Zhaohua, dropping all pretense of elegance, rolled his eyes and scoffed, refusing to eat what he called filthy street food. But with Jiang Tianming not around, Li Shu switched to his soft, charming mode, insisting the vendor looked honest enough. The skewer uncle, smiling at the youthful crowd, said nothing. Meanwhile, Mo Xiaotian tore into the meat with wild enthusiasm, his mouth too full to speak clearly, but his message was obvious. This stuff was amazing. Zhao Hua, however, was already backing away, desperate to protect his pristine white shirt. Noticing his retreat, Su Bei raised the alarm, "Stop him!" Instantly, Mu Tiren and Mo Xiaotian closed ranks behind Zhao Hua, cutting off his escape. Spinning around, Zhao Hua glared in frustration. But Su Bei, unbothered, pointed at others enjoying their skewers without a care. Was he really the only one being so dramatic? Su Bei is thrust into a strange, blank space where unfinished stories and forgotten characters drift aimlessly. The narrative core, a mechanical force tied to the manga structure, demands a resolution, pushing Subi to confront a final battle. However, instead of fighting, he chooses to rewrite the rules of storytelling itself. In a place where the past is distorted and characters are echoes of memories, Subi refuses the closure that the system demands. With each passing moment, the comic shifts between the mundane and the profound, revealing glimpses of Class S's members and offering readers moments of both confusion and clarity. As Subi's training progresses, the mystery deepens, but the real focus shifts to the characters' emotional journeys. The manga may not end with a final panel, but simply pauses, allowing the story to exist as an endless loop of possibilities. Mo Xiaoxin's insatiable appetite seemed almost logical given his size, but the real surprise came when he ate more than Mu Tiren, who was noticeably larger. Despite stuffing himself, his stomach barely bulged, leaving Subi baffled. "Do you have a different space in your stomach?" Subi teased. Mo Xiaoqian, rubbing his belly, grinned. "I'm still growing. My family says a big appetite is a blessing." Mu Tiren nodded in agreement, adding, "A big appetite is a blessing." Subi, too lazy to question how someone could eat so much and stay so small, dropped the topic. After all, comic worlds had their own logic. Being short in one's youth didn't mean you'd stay that way. After finishing their meal, the group wandered down the street, encountering Jiang Tianming's group on their way back. They came across vendors selling items made by ability users, like invisibility charms and fireball charms, though these were far less refined than the school's versions. But when a protagonist is involved, fortune often strikes. Jiang Tianming managed to haggle a sealed talisman paper from the vendor, who claimed it had been discovered during a different space adventure. It was said to have multiple seals, though they couldn't be undone, rendering it useless, yet Jiang Tianming bought it at a bargain price. As Su Bi observed, he couldn't help but wonder, "If I remember correctly, this is a comic world, not a novel world, right?" Inside his mind, manga consciousness responded smugly. Novels can borrow comic tropes, and comics can borrow novel tropes. Ling Yu's ability, tied to the concept of a plague, was a unique power that sparked wild imaginations. While others joked that listening to certain types of music might create everything from a laughing poison to a euthanasia virus, Ling Yu calmly clarified that it wasn't about the emotions or music. The key was in the contagiousness of her ability. Though not as powerful against individuals, in a crowd, her power truly shone. Meanwhile, the group was caught up in an unexpected feast, with each person's appetite amusingly tested. While Si Zhaohua's complaints hinted at his discomfort, it was Mo Xiaotian who stunned everyone with his impressive food intake, leaving Su Bi in awe at how such a small frame could hold so much. Mu Tiren's large frame made his appetite seem normal, but Mo Xiaotian, much smaller than Su Bi, devoured even more food, which was simply absurd. Staring at Mo Xiaotian's surprisingly flat stomach despite the massive intake, Su Bi couldn't resist teasing. Got a different space in your stomach? Mo Xiaotian rubbed his belly and grinned. I'm still growing. My family says a big appetite is a blessing. Mu Tiren, agreeing wholeheartedly, added, a big appetite is a blessing. Su Bi shrugged, deciding not to question why Mo Xiaotian could eat so much yet remain so small. After all, comic worlds often ignored such details. Once they'd eaten, minus any alcohol, the group wandered down a street selling various items where they bumped into Jiang Tianming's group, who had also finished eating, and they headed back together. These items were mostly made by ability users, holding powers that could be used by others, like invisibility charms or fireball charms, though these were far more basic and less effective than the school's versions. But where there's a protagonist, there's always potential for something great. Jiang Tianming managed to pick up a sealed talisman paper from the vendor's stall. The seller explained it had been found during a different space adventure and, after being appraised, was deemed unusable due to its multiple seals, but Jiang Tianming, ever the opportunist, haggled it down to a bargain price. Su Bi couldn't help but mutter to himself, if I remember right, this is a comic world, not a novel world, right? The voice of manga consciousness in his mind smugly replied, novels can borrow comic tropes, and comics can borrow novel tropes. At the hotel entrance, Ye Lin stood, and Wu Jin casually broached a topic that seemed unimportant but was clearly intentional. Is teacher still angry? Yi Lin gave a brief glance at Su Bi, smiled, and shook her head. It's fine now, before walking away. As soon as she left, everyone turned to Wu Jin, with A Baoju asking curiously, angry about what? Teacher Ye gets angry? Lan Subing's curiosity was piqued, her eyes gleaming as she asked, did she fight with Teacher Meng or Teacher Lei? With all eyes on him, Wu Jin looked at Su Bi for help. Though not shy, he wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially with his hair covering his face. Su Bi stepped in, explaining, the teachers weren't happy with our training results and debated whether to stop working with us starting tomorrow. This revelation stunned everyone. Even the weakest in Class S felt the sting of the teacher's dissatisfaction. After a moment of silence, Jiang Tianming tentatively asked, is it because we were too lax? In a world of unexpected twists, the comic takes readers on a wild ride, with Su Bi at the center of it all. He's suspected to be the spy after a seemingly obvious reveal, but just as quickly, doubts creep in. Is he really the spy, or is this just a clever misdirection? The story, playing with the tension of uncertainty, takes a break from its explosive moments and shifts focus to the characters, offering glimpses into their lives and interactions. Among the surprises, we see Wu Jin and Zhao Xiaoyu, whose background stories spark curiosity, while the story also hints at deeper ties within the academy. Training sequences become less about combat and more about Su Bi's overwhelming strength, standing far above his peers. Readers are quick to notice his dominance, but amid the action, the focus never strays too far from the mysterious allure of Class S and its intriguing members, each carrying their own secrets. It's not just about what happens next, but how the characters evolve in this ever-unfolding drama. Since the team battles ended, there hadn't been much excitement, just endless training. But Su Bi didn't see it as wasted time. In fact, he felt they all made major strides, like a group going through an intense boot camp. Still, deep down he wished for more training. The idea of getting stronger felt like a safety net. The more powerful he became, the easier it'd be to take on the villains, right? But then he remembered villains always seemed to match the hero's strength in this world, where evil often had the upper hand. The more they trained, the stronger the bad guys would get. So, maybe skipping some training wouldn't be so bad after all. That said, After a prompt from Manga Consciousness, Subi sensed a slight power boost. Though he couldn't figure out exactly what changed, he was eager to explore it. Back in his room, he didn't check his phone immediately. Instead, he focused on figuring out what had improved within him. After testing his ability, Subi couldn't hide his excitement. He had enhanced the one skill he needed most, reducing the cost of altering fate. This likely stemmed from that iconic scene where he defeated the purple-haired woman with a snap of his finger. Although that moment hadn't been a game changer, it was more like the final nudge readers had believed he easily altered fate with that move. And because of that, the cost of using his power dropped significantly. In a thrilling turn of events, Subi discovers that repeating actions will now only cost him a fraction of his mental energy. This revelation is more than exciting. It's a game changer. While boosting physical skills and mental abilities are valuable, nothing beats the advantage of reducing the cost of turning the pointer. With that, Subi opens his phone to catch up on the latest chapter of his favorite comic, which picks up right after the team battle. The group has just narrowly avoided danger, their spirits high, but Jiang Tianming's face remains serious, lost in thought. As Subi prepares to leave, Jiang Tianming calls out to him, saying he will find him later. The scene shifts to the dorms, where Jiang Tianming hesitates before knocking on Subi's door, asking, "When I was escaping, I saw you up in a tree, but when I went back, you were gone. Where did you go?" A flashback then unravels, showing how Jiang Tianming, after detonating a bomb and fleeing with his team, caught a glimpse of Subi sitting in a tree, watching the chaos unfold. Despite several pursuers on his tail, he could not stop to speak to Subi. Once he shook them off, he returned, hoping to regroup with a familiar teammate. But when he arrived, the tree was empty, and Subi was nowhere to be found. While this plot might seem minor on its own, paired with the previous chapter's cliffhanger, it sparks much speculation about what comes next. Subi's journey takes an unexpected turn when he's thrust into a world beyond the pages, a realm where discarded characters and unfinished stories float in a surreal void. As he navigates this unwritten space, a strange force called the Narrative Core emerges, a self-repairing system trying to force a conclusion to the story. However, Subi isn't ready to bow to expectations. Rather than fight the system, he creates the anti-ending, a paradox that constantly rewrites itself through emotion rather than plot. As familiar characters return, not as themselves but as distorted echoes, the boundaries of the story begin to collapse. Subi, now a sentient presence aware of his role within the narrative, chooses not to fight for closure. Instead, he lets go, accepting the imperfection of the story and its unfinished threads. The manga, instead of concluding, transforms into a blank space, an eternal margin, where the story continues, endlessly open to interpretation. Subi, once an ordinary student with no expectations for the world of abilities, now finds himself at the forefront of a new reality. At first, he thought his powers were just a fleeting curiosity, something disconnected from the true essence of his life. But now, something has shifted. As he trains, a strange feeling dawns on him he's caught up. No longer just a Class F student, Subi is stronger than most and no longer an outsider to the ability world. With each passing day, he's becoming more than just a player in this universe. He's evolving into something greater. As he reflects on his journey, a quiet realization settles in: he's no longer the same. What began as an accidental intersection with the ability world has now fully integrated him into its rhythm. Subi isn't merely part of the narrative anymore. He's a force in it. Subi suddenly felt a faint crack in his mind, and a subtle surge of mental energy coursed through him. At his advanced level, any further growth was hard to come by, so this unexpected shift was a pleasant surprise. 2 breakthroughs in a single day lifted his spirits, and with a smile, he continued reading. A month passed, and the different space training began. The scene shifted to a cold, silver-white lab, where a butler, his back turned, reported to someone. A black lightning mark faintly adorned his neck. They'll begin a week-long training tomorrow. Our team is already in position. The person he reported to, still engaged in an experiment, briefly tossed a vial of red potion to the butler, saying, "This time, you go personally. I want them alive." "Yes, sir," Subi frowned. He had long suspected the Black Flash organization would make a move during the training, but seeing it confirmed still made his head ache. At least the boss wanted them alive, meaning there wouldn't be immediate mortal danger. As long as he wasn't killed outright, there would be room to escape. Meanwhile, in the San-Si different space, the setting was described in a mundane manner, but the dynamic between classmates Meng Wai, Ye Lin, and Lei Xin caught attention, with fans eagerly hoping for a flashback arc for the trio. Subi wasn't sure if things would escalate unless their popularity kept up until the season's end, potentially creating a side story. After settling in, everyone gathered in the plaza outside the different space. The conflict with Skydome Ability Academy unfolded, with Wu Mingbai and Jiang Tianming's fierce dialogue capturing attention, while Subi's interaction with Li Shu stirred even more excitement. Fans couldn't get enough of Wu Mingbai's playful sarcasm, calling him the master of shade, while Jiang Tianming's composed rebuttals made them swoon. The crowd's excitement reached a peak as they eagerly waited for Li Shu to take action, with some pledging to buy his merch if he made them pay. Meanwhile, Skydome's team was already plotting their revenge, which made Subi raise an eyebrow trouble was brewing, and with Black Flash also planning to move, he secretly hoped they would clash. The comic closed with Jiang Tianming's perspective, showing Subi retreating just before the crowd arrived, leaving the tension lingering. After the group was pushed out of Skydome, they entered the different space, revealing a vast desert with a small rest stop surrounded by a translucent blue barrier. This barrier, invisible to the naked eye, was likely set by the ability government to protect the rest stop. The rest stop was crowded, and the veteran traveler's calmness contrasted sharply with the newcomer's inexperience, clearly marking who was seasoned and who was not. The veteran's amused expressions didn't go unnoticed, and the protagonists grew wary. As they prepared to leave, Jiang Tianming's gaze shifted to Su Bei, who stepped back, prompting him to follow. Jiang Tianming's thought bubble revealed his reasoning. Su, be stepping back means something's up. I'll follow. Feng Lan, realizing something, stepped aside, and Zhao Xiaoyu followed suit. However, Mo Xiaoqian, oblivious to the situation, strode out carelessly. The Wise One's retreat turned out to be a good decision, as the first group to leave faced ambushes from nightmare beasts. After fending off the beasts, the veterans noticed the retreating group, avoiding the fight altogether. This sparked laughter among readers, who found Subei's actions hilariously shady. After traveling through the desert, the teachers mysteriously disappear, leaving Feng Lan to explain their goal: find the closed point. Jiang Tianming confirms it's to the north. Along the way, Qing Qing and her group appear. Initially, they seem interesting with their abilities and teamwork. However, things take a turn when they start asking far too many questions. What seemed like a fun cooperative arrangement quickly becomes overwhelming, as each key question is preceded by multiple others, making the whole process feel excessive. Smart readers already sensed something was off. During a break, Jiang Tianming, Si Xiaohua, and Su Bi quietly discussed the closed point. But when Subi mentioned details he shouldn't know, the chat exploded, questions flying, suspicions rising. How did he know? Was he hiding intel pipelines beyond his ability? Was he a spy? The mystery thickened. Even Subi, living through it, was caught off guard by how others perceived him. The comic dove deeper. Jiang Tianming's inner monologue revealed he no longer believed Subi's knowledge came from powers alone. Subi was impressed. Someone finally saw through the surface. That worked in his favor. He no longer needed to leak info through the profit account. The tension peaked as Quicksand signaled they'd found something. Just then, Zhou Renji and Brother Knife returned, and the sunset twisted the air from warm to cold. Zhou Renji confronted Subi, eyes sharp, expecting to catch him off guard. But Subi Ei just smiled knowingly. Good news or bad? He teased. Of course, it was bad. Subi, feeling the weight of the moment, knew what was coming but still couldn't escape the sinking sensation. With a wry smile, he muttered, "Good, of course." But then, as if to avoid the inevitable, he vanished into thin air. The audience was left in chaos. Subi, you're a legend. Wait, is he my ideal type? How does he do that vanishing thing? Is that part of his ability? Dodging danger like a pro. I swear he's the king of escape artists. Danger always chases, but never catches me, Subi seemed to say in spirit. But then, just as Wu Jin disappeared, the scene took a turn. They quickly subdued others, and the view shifted underground. The maze, a classic trope, was more of a spectacle than anything else. But for Subi, it was nothing more than a passing distraction, a space where he skimmed through the pages, uninterested in the repetitive danger. Once they resurfaced, he slowed down to follow the plot once more, the underground phase finally winding to a close. The focus was once again on Ching Ching's group. Joe Renji's understanding of Subi Ei was sharp, and while he saw through the facade Subi projected, he didn't meddle, especially not as a teacher. But Subi, when it came to his own safety, would have acted quickly, contacting the school for a rescue if needed. The comic, however, painted Joe Renji as a comedic figure, not a villain. His deep affection for Ching Ching led him to sabotage her out of love, attempting to lessen her punishment despite the teachers watching over him. His inner turmoil was the epitome of lovesick behavior. When Yi-Lin offered him a potion, Joe Renji refused stubbornly, his absurd rant making readers burst into laughter. The comments were full of pity and mockery, even from those who once clashed with him. It became clear that Joe Renji, a clown caught in his own tragic comedy, had turned from villain to a pitied figure. Shizawa led the group to his room, where the spacious double room was more than enough for 7 people. As everyone gathered, he began reading the details of Mission 2 from the documents. The story centers on a family of 5 who once lived in a villa. A father, mother, 16-year-old son, 8-year-old daughter, and grandfather. The trouble began when the grandfather started feeling weak and dizzy, with dark spots appearing on his body. Despite hospital tests yielding no answers, his condition worsened and he soon passed away. The daughter began showing similar symptoms, and tests still couldn't determine the cause. Fearing a contagious disease, the family sought help from a government-affiliated ability user who suggested a nightmare beast might be the cause. They moved out, and while the daughter's condition stabilized, it didn't improve. The family later sold the villa, fully disclosing the situation, but some buyers, undeterred by the warnings, moved in anyway. Within 3 months, both residents of the second household began to exhibit the same symptom. In a world beyond panels, Subi drifts into a realm where discarded ideas and unfinished characters float aimlessly. As he ventures through this unwritten space, the narrative core, a self-repairing system tied to the manga's original structure, follows him. Its purpose? To force a last chapter before chaos spreads. But Subi, no longer bound by the rules of the manga, refuses to play along. Instead of facing a final battle, he creates the anti-ending, a paradox that endlessly rewrites itself with emotion, not plot. In chapter 80, he doesn't defeat the system, he lets go. The manga doesn't conclude, it just becomes blank again. In a space beyond the narrative, Subi finds himself in a realm of floating concepts and unfinished stories, haunted by the relentless pull of the narrative core, a self-repairing force that demands closure. Characters from his past return, not as they once were, but as echoes of memories, their identities now fractured. As the core pushes for a final battle, Subi rejects the idea of resolution, creating an anti-ending, a page that loops endlessly without conclusion. He refuses to conform to the expected rhythm, embracing imperfection and untold stories. In the end, Subi chooses not to end the manga, leaving it blank, allowing space for infinite possibilities and the freedom of unfinished narratives. The story isn't over. It's just paused, lingering in a timeless margin. The comic forums exploded after the latest update, with heated posts dissecting the plot and pointing fingers at Subi Ei. Was he the spy? One side was convinced. The clues were too loud, his disappearance at the end of the team battle. The iconic white shoes, it all screamed, spy! But others weren't buying it. A passionate fan argued against the accusation, saying that while the spy twist was tempting, Subi couldn't possibly betray the team. Meanwhile, the story itself had taken a surreal turn. Subi had stepped beyond the manga's narrative into a blank realm of forgotten ideas and abandoned characters. There, he faced the narrative core, a mechanical force demanding a final chapter to prevent chaos. Old allies returned, not as themselves, but as echoes of reader memory. Refusing to be trapped by expectations, Subi crafted an anti-ending, a paradox of emotion over plot, defying closure. In the end, he didn't win or lose. He simply chose to remain in the margins, letting the story go blank again. In the void beyond the pages, where discarded ideas and unfinished arcs swirl, Subi awakens. A place where nothing is complete, and yet, something from the narrative system, the narrative core, follows him. This core, a crystalline force made of panels and tropes, demands resolution. Characters return, not as they are, but as echoes of what readers remember. Lan Subing is but a shadow. Feng Lan's smile feels out of place, and Wu Mingbai's laughter drifts as static. The core pushes for closure, a final battle, but Subi rejects this. Instead of conforming to expectations, he creates the anti-ending, a paradox that rewrites itself endlessly through emotion, not plot. In the final pages, Subi doesn't defeat the system. He simply lets it go, accepting the imperfections, the loose ends, and the freedom of characters to exist without a definitive conclusion. The manga doesn't end, it just becomes blank. Again, the story takes a fascinating twist as Subi steps beyond the confines of the manga world into a space filled with discarded characters and unfinished arcs. Here, he faces the narrative core, a self-repairing system determined to force a last chapter to preserve order. However, Subi, now aware of his own narrative freedom, defies the system's expected rhythm. As he confronts the remnants of his former friends, now mere echoes of themselves, Subi begins crafting a new path, one that resists closure. Instead of defeating the system, he creates the anti-ending, a paradox that rewrites itself endlessly, symbolizing the idea of freedom over finality. In the end, the manga doesn't close, it simply becomes blank, leaving behind an open space where stories can continue unwritten, untethered, and infinite. Subi might not have planned to help at first, but when exposed, he could have disappeared without a trace, using his mysterious abilities. He had no obligation to save anyone, especially after eliminating a student and sending a message about Feng Lan's disappearance, indicating he didn't know she'd been captured. From the start, his aim was to help Jiang Tianming, the unluckiest student, as he saw potential in him, which is why he chose Class F over Class A. Yet, when Black Flash targeted only Si Xiaohua in the team battle, it raised suspicions. Despite his actions, it's clear that Subi isn't the sainted spy he's sometimes made out to be, leaving much to unravel. OP dove deep into the mystery and cracked open a theory so compelling, even the skeptics started switching sides. Subi isn't the spy. At first, people were overwhelmed by the wall of text, joking about analysis overload, but post after post started lining up the logic. If Subi were really the spy, how come Jiang Tianming's still untouched? Why would an author known for twists suddenly go full-on reveal mode? That felt off. The narrative just didn't add up. Slowly, comments shifted from doubt to trust, praising OP's airtight reasoning. The kicker? Even those who weren't convinced by the theory got swayed just out of respect for the sheer effort. A heated thread erupts as users debate who the hidden traitor is, with the original poster boldly claiming Subi is innocent. They argue that since Subi and another student weren't present at the final team action, an event that thwarted the enemy's plan, the real spy must be someone else entirely. The theory is that any true saboteur would have acted during that crucial moment, yet nothing was disrupted. While some suspect favoritism shielding certain characters, others praise the logic, sparking a wave of agreement and deeper speculation in this growing web of suspicion. Everyone was babbling nonsense, just echoing the crowd, totally lost. The list of suspects came out: Ling Yu, Li Shu, Zhou Renji, Zhao Xiaoyu, Qi Huang, Mo Xiaotian, and Mu Tiren. But the idea that the last three could be spies was so absurd, one viewer joked they'd kick their own head like a ball if it were true. Another narrowed it down: Li Shu, Zhou Renji, and Zhao Xiaoyu seemed the most suspicious. Ling, you felt too cold and distant to be a spy, though not entirely off the hook. Zhou Renji? Definitely not the saint. Maybe he joined Black Flash later, but he wasn't in from the beginning. Zhao Xiaoyu seemed the best candidate: clever, cunning, with all the right traits for a spy, but someone pushed back. Her ability was weak. Even if it's a bluff, what's the advantage of pretending to be in Class F? Then another voice chimed in: what if it's Ling Yu after all? Suddenly showing up in Class S like that? Suspicion lingered in the air like a badly drawn panel. In a world where unfinished arcs and discarded characters drift aimlessly, Subi finds himself in an unwritten realm beyond the pages of his manga. Here, he's confronted by the narrative core, a self-repairing system that demands a final chapter to restore order, but Subi refuses to follow the conventional rhythm. As former friends return, not as they were, but as shadows of the reader's memories, Subi must confront the looming idea of closure. Rather than fight, he creates an endless anti-ending, a paradoxical page that redefines story and emotion, with no conclusion in sight. The manga doesn't end. It simply fades into blankness, a pause in an eternal narrative, leaving Subi as the eternal guardian of unfinished stories. Damn that old thief, how could someone so laughably clumsy carry such a crushing past? Subi chuckled at the online theories. None guessed Mo Xiaotian, which only made it better. Of course, no one suspected him. The guy acted like he'd leapt from a classic shonen comic, all charm and chaos. But Subi had no plans to be anyone's scapegoat saint, no matter how poetic a secret identity arc sounded. Meanwhile, the comic relief villain from Season 1? Subi remembered every misstep, every pratfall, and the shocking twist turns out the fool wasn't foolish at all. He'd staged every blunder, hiding vengeance beneath slapstick until the final moment, when he took down the big bad in a blaze of mutual destruction. Fans still mourn him daily. Shaking his head at the thread, Subi exited with a smirk, heading for the next clue, the source behind his own intel. In the latest chapter, Subi reveals a fascinating mystery. How did he know the creation time of the different space? While others, including Jiang Tianming and Si Zhaohua, were in the dark, Subi's knowledge seemed to come from somewhere outside of the known channels. Jiang Tianming's thoughts hint that it wasn't through the usual means, like the Destiny Gear, suggesting a hidden source of information. This raises an intriguing question. How did Subi, so quickly after arriving, gain insight into the space's creation when no one else had a clue? It's a puzzle that deepens the mystery surrounding his abilities and sets the stage for even greater revelation. Subi's always been an enigma. It wouldn't even surprise anyone if he casually revealed the location of the closed point one day. Observing his moves, it seems clear that during Menghuai's mission, Subi was always close by, making it impossible for him to gather intel while everyone was under watch. This suggests that Subi EI must have learned about their destination during the intense Class S training. It's possible that, in the prep phase, he predicted the journey to the desert, different space, and studied it in advance. While some think Subi might have gathered information upon arrival, it seems more likely that he had a reliable intel source within the academy itself. This idea fits with the earlier theories circulating when Sun Ming held Subi captive. Many speculated that Subi had hidden ways to monitor what was going on in the school. Subi's always been a figure wrapped in mystery. Honestly, if he suddenly revealed where the close point was, it wouldn't surprise anyone. After Menghuai brought them out, Subi EI was always in the background, with no time to gather intel. This suggests he must have gathered it during the Class S training. So, during Menghuai's prep phase, Subi likely had an inkling about their destination and researched it in advance. While some believe Subi might have obtained the information by asking around after they arrived, it seems less likely since he was always accompanied by others with no opportunity to ask. The more probable explanation is that Subi had an intelligence source within the academy, a theory that aligns with forum speculations when Subi was held hostage by Sun Ming. Many thought he had ways to monitor the school, which only adds to the enigma surrounding him. Subi's journey takes a new turn after reading a comment from Menghuai, which makes him reconsider the timeline of his ability awakening. With a sudden idea in mind, he wonders if he can manipulate readers into believing his power had developed earlier, and if that could change his reality. He asks Manga Consciousness whether changing past events within the comic could alter the present, specifically if his meeting with Jiang Tianming could become part of the story's continuity. The answer lies in a subtle distinction. If readers believe it, the memory will be added to Jiang Tianming, and Subi would return to that moment. It's a delicate balance of perception and memory, and the line between fiction and reality becomes even more blurred as Subi contemplates the power of narrative itself. Subi asks the core consciousness how he might return to change the past, and 3 rules were revealed. Only through memory changes, story retellings, or physical consequence could he re-enter a scene. With this, he formed a plan to convince others he had awakened his ability earlier, just like the Fangs did, so he could reclaim what should have been his. The next day, a heavy contract landed on every desk, forcing Class S students to acknowledge the risks ahead. No one backed down, not even Subi, though in truth, he wasn't interested in bravado. He just knew which role he was meant to play. Subi, ever the pragmatic character, wasn't worried about the formalities of signing the document, knowing full well that despite the serious looks on the teachers' faces, they'd follow the plan anyway. To him, fearing death wasn't a weakness, but rather a comic trope best avoided in the narrative. When the signing was done, their teacher, Menghuai, wasted no time in announcing their next challenge, mid-level nightmare beasts. The students had already dealt with low-level nightmare beasts for over a month. Creatures like nightmare snakes, rabbits, and tigers. But these were just animals with enhanced abilities. The mid-level beasts were different, no longer bound by animal forms. They took on diverse, shadowy shapes with powers that were far more deadly. The excitement in the air was palpable, as many wondered if they'd encounter high-level beasts, creatures with human-like intelligence that were notorious for their difficulty to capture. Among the group, some, like Si Xiaohua, remained calm, familiar with the dangers of the ability world, despite their family's limited exposure. Mo Xiaoxian, the ever-curious student, immediately raised his hand, asking how they'd even find these mid-level beasts in the vast desert. Meng Huai's response was blunt. There were indeed mid-level beasts, but they'd be near impossible to find without the right approach. And so, 2 missions were set in motion. As the team receives their assignments, Zhang Tianming carefully catches the items tossed his way. 2 folders and 15 mission execution permits from the ability government. With no need for further explanation, Meng Huai leaves the team to review the mission details, instructing them to focus on their own tasks. Zhao Xiaoyu raises a concern about the absence of 2 teachers, but Meng Huai dismisses it, reminding everyone to prioritize their own missions. The team dives into the folders, uncovering 2 distinct assignments involving mid-level nightmare beasts. The first task involves capturing a fugitive nightmare beast that has a deep knowledge of its surroundings and formidable attack power, with many previous teams failing the mission. However, its behaviors are well documented, offering the team an edge. The second task presents a more unusual case, a household where residents have been mysteriously growing weaker, with no improvement even after moving out. New tenants are showing the same troubling symptoms, creating a critical situation that needs urgent attention. In a world where missions demand quick decisions, a group of 7 faces a challenging choice. The team had to tackle a house that caused strange fluctuations in their abilities, likely due to a mid-level nightmare beast. But no team had yet dared to step in, as the risk was too great and the healing costs high. Still, Subi's team wasn't worried. Ye Lin, their healing expert, was more than capable of handling the situation. With support from the Endless Ability Academy, they were confident that no challenge could stop them. As the group discussed their next move, each person expressed their preference. Most chose Mission 2, favoring the mental challenge over physical labor. While 2 members, Si Xiaohua and Wu Mingbai, preferred a combat-heavy mission, there were no major disagreements. Both teams eventually made their choices, and they set off, ready for whatever lay ahead. They were in a dire situation. Their savings spent entirely on the house. Forced to endure the harsh reality for 2 long months, their resilience kept them alive, though their bodies were frail. Despite the ability government's attempts to intervene, offering to either help them move or resolve the issue, the couple refused. They feared that any intervention might cause them to lose the house. The first family had cleverly set the sales contract in such a way that if the ability government interfered, the house's price would revert to its original value. The couple couldn't afford the difference, which would defeat the purpose of buying a discounted home in the first place. With no other choice, they finally allowed the ability government to step in. When they heard the mission details, Wu Mingbai joked, "Find a nightmare beast with no tools? Are they expecting us to use our bodies as bait?" For ordinary people, the nightmare beast wouldn't show up, but for ability users, it was a different story. They were seen as easy prey. Li Shu, sharing Wu Mingbai's sarcastic humor, added, "What a brilliant plan, worthy of the government." Their sarcastic exchange left Si Zhaohua, the leader, with a headache, and he quickly coughed to steer them back on track, offering a solution. "If you're willing to pay, you can rent a nightmare beast detector from the ability government." The ability government provided a range of specialized tools to assist ability users, but these tools came at a cost. They weren't stingy. Many of these tools were one of a kind, available nowhere else, making their generosity evident. Yet, for the moment, no one had any intention of using them. Wu Jin, still wrapped in a cloud of gloom, quietly mentioned he could vaguely sense the location of the nightmare beast. His words caused a brief pause among the group. Subi's thoughts began to stir. Wu Jin had once mentioned he was sensitive to emotions. Did this mean he could detect the emotions of the nightmare beasts as well? But Wu Jin offered no further explanation, retreating to his quiet corner. Si Zhaohua, however, appeared unfazed, confidently stating that the nightmare beast would reveal itself in due time. His confidence was grounded in his ability angel, which had an alluring effect on the beasts. Su Bi, piecing things together, understood why Si Zhaohua was so sure. "Shall we act now?" Zhao Xiaoyu asked. There was no set timeline for the mission, so they could proceed whenever they chose. Unlike the previous mission, which had required the cover of night due to the Nightmare Beast's nocturnal nature, this one didn't follow such constraints. Time was precious, and finishing quickly meant more rest for everyone. Subi, ever the pragmatist, prioritized rest over honor when the choice to travel arose. With the prospect of more rest on the line, the group quickly agreed to head to their destination. But the first issue, transportation. Wu Mingbai innocently raised the question, taxi or bus? Si Zhaohua, with a haughty glance, coldly replied, car. No inconvenience for him, comfort was key. As for Meng Huai, although he hadn't strictly forbidden outside help during training, no one would normally rely on it as it contradicted the very point of their challenge. Yet, for something as trivial as transportation, Si Zhaohua wasn't one to skimp. Lan Subing wasn't shocked either. She had intended to call her own driver. With Si Zhaohua taking the lead, she felt pleased to simply sit back and relax. Pick a spacious car, or get a few, Subi suggested wisely, anticipating the exhaustion of their return journey. More space meant more rest. Si Zhaohua soon got a message confirming the arrangement, and they made their way outside to a sleek, luxurious van. A well-dressed man stepped out, bowing respectfully to Si Zhaohua. Young Master Si, your orders. Lan Subing, ever the critic, muttered under her breath. So cringy, shrinking behind Wu Mingbai as the spectacle unfolded. A stranger's presence unsettled her, prompting Subi to ask in surprise if her family wasn't like that. Though the display felt over the top, he wasn't shocked television had trained him to expect this from the wealthy. Lan Subing, clearly offended, insisted her family was normal, with a regular driver uncle. If her driver ever acted that way, she'd have cringed out of existence at school. She had plenty to criticize the bow, the suit, the words, but refrained, knowing gossip wasn't polite. Wu Mingbai, however, seized the moment, smirking at the theatrics and calling it fitting for a young master. That sarcasm rubbed off on Li Shu, who responded with mock formality, warning not to stoop to Wu Mingbai's level while still using the title Young Master Sai, drawing laughter from the group. Lan Subing tried to hide her amusement, noting he wasn't innocent either. They piled into the car, headed toward their destination, while Zhao Xiaoyu, ever the smooth talker, called the house's current owners to dig up the details, her social finesse eclipsing everyone else. The couple, while agreeing to let external authorities step in for safety reasons, made it clear they wouldn't be easy to persuade. They were the kind of people willing to gamble with their lives for a deal, only backing down when absolutely necessary. A woman with a soft voice picked up the phone. Hello? Who's this? We're here to resolve your problem, Zhao Xiaoyu replied smoothly, carefully avoiding any mention of the authorities. To the couple, any mention of official intervention would mean losing their chance at a bargain, something they were sure to resist. By not addressing it directly, Zhao Xiaoyu hoped to minimize any pushback. The woman hesitated, then seemed to realize, Oh, you're those with abilities, right? Your voice sounds so young. A 15-year-old's voice was unmistakable, even through the phone's distortion. Zhao Xiaoyu didn't try to hide it. We're still students. If you're bothered by our youth, you're free to find someone else. Despite the words, Zhao Xiaoyu wasn't worried. The mission had been up for 2 months with no takers. The couple was clearly desperate. Who else would they turn to? As expected, after a brief pause, the woman's tone changed, now eager and almost flattering. No, you're fine. Heroes come young. At your age, I was skipping class to play at internet cafes. Zhao Xiaoyu, sharp as ever, cuts to the chase. She and her team are heading to the villa. Can the other party arrive soon? The woman, after a pause, says it'll take 2 hours. Their place is far. No issue, Zhao Xiaoyu's already holding the keys. So they'll go ahead, check it out, and wait. After the call, silence lifts and sparks a quick discussion. Lan Subing finds the couple less difficult than expected, given how the documents painted them as trouble. Wu Mingbai credits Zhao Xiaoyu's tact by hinting the mission was optional. She disarmed the couple's defenses. Zhao Xiaoyu just smiles, not modest, just quiet. They arrive at a small, white, Western-style villa with a neat garden. Nothing hinting at danger, yet inside, sealed by the ability government, sleeps a mid-level nightmare beast. Using the key, they step into stale air and dust 2 months untouched. The house whispers secrets beneath its grime. In a house that seems to have forgotten time, Si Zhaohua can't help but frown at the disarray. Zhao Xiaoyu, ever the optimist, suggests they clean it up first, a chance to explore the house in the process. Li Shu, always practical, agrees, grabbing cleaning supplies and offering to tackle the first floor living room. Despite his seemingly harmless demeanor, like that of a gentle high schooler, Si Xiaohua's obsession with cleanliness isn't easily ignored. With a look of discomfort, he calls his driver for extra help. Lan Subing, from a similar wealthy background, shows no such hesitation, picking up a rag to wipe the tables. Zhao Xiaoyu, curious about her life, asks if chores are a regular part of her home routine. Lan Subing shakes her head, explaining that they have a maid, but sometimes she does help out. She casts a glance at Si Xiaohua, adding with a slight smile, "Wiping tables is easy once you get started. Cleanliness obsession, though, that's a different story." While sweeping the villa's second floor, just the two of them, Wu Jin casually slicks back his purple hair, flashing his sharp features in the mirror as Su Bi watches. Su Bi asks if he's not worried someone might come up, but Wu Jin, ever confident, replies he'd know his low presence. Ability makes sure of that. Besides, that gorgeous face needs air. Back in his usual narcissistic mode, Wu Jin draws a quiet chuckle from Su Bi, who then shifts to the real concern. Has Wu Jin sensed the nightmare beast? Wu Jin admits he hasn't only when it uses its ability. Su Bei's eyes narrow. Maybe his guess was off. Does Wu Jin need the beast to act first to feel it? Without a word, Su Bei glances at the destiny compass in the mirror. The needles still point true. Traveling with the main cast has perks, directional stability. This case is minor. Unless those two troublemakers from the day before jump in, things should stay quiet. But will they? Su Bi sat on the coffee table, lost in thought. The training was still in its early stages, but he couldn't help but wonder if it was time to act. With a quick swipe of the table, he slouched back. Wu Jin joined him, his usual composed self, but today his hair was swept back, giving him the appearance of someone who simply wished for chores to be done by others. Wu Jin, sensing the tension, spoke up, suggesting they should pretend to be productive to avoid being scolded later. Su Bi, for a moment, couldn't help but be captivated by his words, but quickly snapped back to his senses. He wasn't going to let Wu Jin's antics affect him. A sharp look returned to his gaze, and Wu Jin, relieved to see Su Bi back in control, expressed his joy. Su Bi, unfazed, questioned the entire situation. What was going on here? Wu Jin, after some hesitation, admitted the truth. My ability isn't silence is silence, it's charm demon. My face is the ultimate charm tool, but I can't fully control this bloodline ability. It often charms people without me intending to, which is why I hide my face. Even Su Bi was momentarily thrown off by such an unusual ability. But Ching Ching's Cupid's arrow had already broadened his understanding, so he quickly adjusted and asked, "Bloodline ability? What's that?" Wu Jin, caught off guard by the question, explained, "It's an ability tied to bloodlines, like werewolf or elf bloodlines, or even the charm demon one." Curious, Su, be followed up, "Is Si Xiaohua's angel a bloodline ability?" Wu Jin shook his head, clarifying, "Bloodline abilities can be hereditary, but angel likely isn't." The mention of inheritance made Su Bi raise an eyebrow. "So, the principle is?" Wu Jin, panicked, interrupted sharply, "No, he's not. If my dad heard that, I'd be in huge trouble." With that, Wu Jin openly acknowledged his connection to the principal, knowing that revealing more secrets wouldn't change the course of events. Su Bi tilted his head, knowing Wu Jin wasn't lying, and asked, "So, from your mother?" Stop asking. My charm demon bloodline is inherited, Wu Jin replied, his face pained but still striking. Su Bi raised an eyebrow, dropping the question, but his mind was racing. Wu Jin's reaction didn't add up. If a family member had the charm demon ability, Wu Jin wouldn't act so uncomfortable. He would have simply said so. His behavior suggested there was more to it, that his ability had a twist. Su Bi couldn't deduce much more from what he knew, but he was already planning to research bloodline abilities later for any surprises. When it was his turn, Wu Jin, curiosity written across his face, asked, "How'd you shake off my charm so quickly?" He quickly added, "Not prying, you don't have to say, but I've rarely seen anyone break free so fast, unprepared. I'm shocked." Su Bi waved it off, answering, "Probably my high-level mental energy." Mental energy was a wall against normal abilities. Those with regular mental energy struggled to control someone with high-level mental energy. Wu Jin was surprised. "High-level mental energy?" he asked. Su Bei's response was nothing short of impressive. At their age, a person with such ability was a rare genius among geniuses, something Woo Jin knew well due to his family's background. In a world where stories flow and characters return as mere echoes of their former selves, the government's presence is a steady, unseen force, reliable but distant, never in the way. As the house they're in falls into disarray, Si Zhaohua's distaste is palpable, but Zhao Xiaoyu suggests they start cleaning, turning the task into an opportunity to explore. Li Shu, ever the calm one, takes charge, ready to tidy up, while the others divide the workload. Si Zhaohua, preoccupied with cleanliness, calls for his driver to help out, and Lan Subing, unaffected by any sense of obligation, steps in effortlessly. Zhao Xiaoyu, sensing there's more to her than meets the eye, probes her about chores at home. Lan Subing reveals that though she has a maid, she still helps with cleaning now and then. Her words resonate, a subtle commentary on the fine line between tidying up and obsession, as Si Zhaohua, still fixated on cleanliness, watches from the sidelines. Su Bi pointed out a room near the stairs, explaining that it had originally been his brother's, but was now the couple's bedroom. In the villa, only this room and the 2 bathrooms had remained unchanged. The villa, which had 2 floors and 6 rooms, was divided into a mix of private and guest spaces. The second floor housed the family, with the first floor accommodating guest and storage rooms. After the couple moved in, many rooms had been repurposed. The brothers' old room became their bedroom, while other spaces turned into storage or guest room. Even the grandfather's room was transformed into a game room. Zhao Xiaoyu quickly caught on, suspecting that something about the room was unusual. Su Bi, with a knowing look, encouraged the others to investigate the rooms. As they did, Woo Jin whispered in frustration, realizing that he had been played. He had mistakenly thought that Su Bi was just slacking off, but now it was clear that Su Bi had a clue and was leading them on a subtle investigation. As they explored the house, Si Zhaohua raised an eyebrow. Why wasn't anyone staying in the biggest bedroom on the second floor? It was clearly the most spacious, right in the middle. Zhao Xiaoyu hesitantly offered a theory, maybe because it belonged to the original couple, and some folks avoided living where other couples had once been. Li Shu, watching Su Bi closely, smiled and asked if this was what he wanted them to notice. How did it connect to what he'd said earlier? Si Zhaohua leaned back, curious, was Su Bi hinting this room was the issue? But he remembered the brother had stayed there without a problem, so that didn't quite add up. If it had been the sister's or grandfather's room, maybe there'd be a case. Su Bi said nothing, but every time he got near that room, the tiny pointer would twitch slightly to the left. Something was clearly wrong, but just like Si Zhaohua said, he couldn't explain it yet. Then Lan Subing quietly raised her hand, pointing out something she'd only just realized hadn't the house been renovated. Su Bi's earlier remarks clicked into place. Most rooms had been heavily modified, even though the original contract stated the house had to return to its original price if the issue had been fixed by the ability government. Though the refund covered the purchase, the renovation costs would be lost forever, so why did the couple go all in without hesitation? Were they not afraid of regretting it later? Si Zhaohua pondered aloud, suggesting they ask the couple directly when they arrived. Zhao Xiaoyu turned to Woo Jin, curious if he detected the nightmare beast he mentioned earlier. Woo Jin shook his head, no sign of it yet. He needed it to appear or use its ability to track it. No one looked surprised. Li Shu quietly proposed contacting the first family again, but Si Zhaohua declined, noting the documents already held enough information. Then came a noise from downstairs. Zhao Xiaoyu stood with a smile. It must be the couple. She went to greet them, and the others followed. At the door stood a pale woman wrapped in a thick coat and scarf, her shoulder-length hair swaying slightly, and a man in a matching outfit, but without a scarf, his neck bearing a faint blue mark, likely a trace from the nightmare beast. Surprisingly, Su Bi noticed the couple didn't look desperate enough to seek the ability government. They were pale, yes, but not exactly dying. Zhao Xiaoyu, ever the cautious one, checked in. Miss Wang, are you two okay? I heard the nightmare beast forced you out. The woman just smiled and waved it off, telling them to call her Sister Wang and her partner Brother Lu. They claimed they weren't in danger, just spooked by the weird house vibes and felt better after leaving. But no one really believed that if they were so cautious, why buy a haunted house on discount? Maybe someone from the ability government had it out for them. People always brought drama. As both sides subtly checked each other out, the couple seemed oddly enthusiastic towards Su Bi's young group. Eventually, Zhao Xiaoyu asked what everyone was wondering. There are 3 bedrooms, why not take the master? Sister Wang gave a casual hair tuck and prepared to explain. The original owners had once lived there, but the idea of sleeping in their old room made me uneasy. Zhao Xiaoyu continued explaining the situation, pointing out the numerous renovations that had been made. With a touch of mock outrage, she commented, "You even created a game room. That must have cost a fortune. If you give the house back and the original owners don't cover the renovation costs, you'll be at a huge loss." Sister Wang paused, her expression turning somber as she confessed, "We didn't really think about it. Before all this, who would have believed such things? We thought we were getting a great deal, a huge house for cheap, and used the extra money to renovate." But they weren't lying. The house has issues. Brother Lu handed her a tissue, adding, "Our bad luck. Greed for a bargain really got the best of us." With the explanations cleared up, the focus shifted to the real mystery. "Anything strange happening here besides your symptoms?" The nightmare beasts were usually physical, and they might have encountered one. After thinking for a moment, both shook their heads. "No, the house was normal. Are you sure there's a monster? It feels more like radiation." They were still hesitant to believe in the existence of a nightmare beast. "When did the spots first appear?" Si Zhaohua asked flatly. "Where?" Sister Wang answered, steady but tired 3 months in, just as they'd been warned. The previous owners hinted at something strange, so when it showed up, they noticed. Hospital visits found nothing. Disinfection failed. Nothing changed. Brother Lu stepped in. She had turned the place inside out, but no trace, no reason. They endured until they couldn't. Then Ling Yu spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. "Can we see the spots?" A surprise, but a logical one. Her ability wasn't just for plagues, it could sense illness, distinguish curse from sickness. She had to try. Mid-tier nightmare beasts often reflected their powers in form cold beasts appeared icy. Identifying the ability could hint at what haunted them. Sister Wang met Brother Lu's eyes. He gave a smile that didn't quite reach his face. "Let's go to our room," she said. In the awkward quiet of the living room, she scolded him with a tug at his collar. He should have worn a scarf. Didn't he care about himself? He scratched his neck, embarrassed, then hurried upstairs after her. Behind them, someone murmured that they looked sweet, but was it really that cold? It wasn't. The nearby different space warmed the winter air to an autumn breeze. Even someone with social anxiety, wrapped in a scarf, felt too warm. The rest just wore sweaters. Maybe, someone whispered, they were still frail after the nightmare beast. Upstairs, jackets and scarves dropped to reveal short sleeves and eerie bluish marks on her arm, round and haunting like bruises. "Could it be cured?" she asked, hopeful. Ling, you reached out with her mind, examined carefully, and nodded it was a disease, not contagious, though still unknown. If it had been, she might have fought the beast differently. In the quiet room, she tugged at his collar with a soft reprimand. "I told you to wear a scarf. You never take care of yourself." He chuckled awkwardly, rubbing his neck, and quickly followed her upstairs. "They're so sweet," Lan Subing whispered, adjusting her own scarf. "But is it really that cold?" Though it was winter, the nearby desert-like space created a mild autumn breeze, leaving them comfortably warm, even as she kept the scarf on due to her social anxiety. "Maybe they're just frail," Li Shu murmured, glancing at them. After the nightmare beast's curse, it's normal to feel weak. Inside their room, Sister Wang and Brother Lu shed their outer layers, revealing short-sleeved shirts. Sister Wang displayed her arm, dotted with eerie, bluish circular marks. "Do you think this can be cured?" she asked Ling Yu, worried about the lasting marks. Ling Yu, extending her mental energy, carefully examined the spots. "It's a disease, not contagious," she noted, "but I'm not sure exactly what it is. If it were contagious, Ling, you could have dealt with it and countered the beast's effects. In a world where most people have moved past superstitions, there are still spaces that spark unease, like the room where someone passed away. The question lingers. Why would such a room turn into a game room when so many other rooms serve as mere storage?" A glance at Subi, his eyes questioning, speaks volumes, but he says nothing. Instead, he signals with a nod and a phone call is cut short. Lost in thought, Si Zhaohua forgets he's still on the line, but his father's silence is understanding. Clearing his throat, he reassures, "We're still investigating." Subei interrupts, urging him to ask about the daughter's health, hinting at contradictions in the couple's story. The father's voice, tinged with helplessness, reveals the daughter hasn't improved, she can't even attend school. Si Zhaohua is intrigued, a flicker of suspicion crossing his mind. Interesting, he mutters, hanging up and settling back into the sofa, his thoughts swirling. Was it because they stayed less time, or had the first family's death enhanced the nightmare beast's grip on them? As Subi pieces together the puzzle, he realizes the truth, knowing the significance of the game room, the shifts in the compass, and the strange health changes of the couple. But he doesn't speak. He's content to watch, amused by the unfolding drama, confident that Si Zhaohua will eventually uncover the truth on his own. Subi, always the mischievous one, plays dumb when Si Zhaohua catches on that he's figured something out. Si Zhaohua, clearly triggered by Subi's innocent act, throws him a task: take Zhao Xiaoyu's place. Fair enough, Subi had been slacking. With a sheepish cough, he heads upstairs. Meanwhile, Zhao Xiaoyu had already wrapped up her interview, piecing together a pattern. The illness struck the weakest, first the grandfather, then the child. Not coincidence, but exposure. Subi sees through the illusion. Resilience didn't protect. It just delayed. The room itself was the problem. When Zhao Xiaoyu reports the family's routine, Subi jokes about the game room, his voice light and teasing. But Sister Wang's chuckle hides something darker. Someone died there. It's powerless now. No electricity, no joy, just silence and waiting. In a world where using special abilities on civilians requires strict approval, chaos looms if the rules are ignored. Abilities are controlled to prevent disasters, and following the rules benefits everyone. Zhao Xiaoyu, familiar with the regulations, suggests they need clear evidence of harmful actions to justify using their powers. Although they know the couple is hiding something, they lack proof. Wu Mingbai proposes baiting them by pretending they've cracked the case, but without solid evidence, it's risky. Subi points to the game room as a clue, and upon entering, the atmosphere feels off. Despite the colorful, vibrant setting, a sense of irritability hangs in the air. The game room, meant to bring joy, feels strangely unsettling for the group. Something didn't sit right. Turning a room touched by death into a storage space was understandable, but a game room? That felt wrong. As she puzzled over it, Wu Mingbai, Li Shu, and Lan Subing burst from the largest bedroom, thrilled. Wu Mingbai, spotting Subi and Zhao Xiaoyu, excitedly declared they'd found something. He led everyone downstairs before explaining. The biggest room was originally the couple's bedroom, yet for some unknown reason, they'd moved next door. Though Subi had flagged that room without proof, Wu Mingbai trusted her instincts. She never spoke without reason. When they noticed the couple avoided the main room despite logical explanations, suspicion grew. Wu Mingbai inspected the now stuffed storage room and spotted a pristine photo of the couple on a low cabinet, odd, considering the mess. Why would something sentimental be left there? Driven by instinct, he confirmed the room's original use. The couple had initially accepted it without issue, but their later excuse for switching rooms was a lie. Realizing this, Li Shu smirked and suggested filing with the ability government. Getting the truth out of two ordinary people would be easy. With Li Shu's illusion, Lan Subing's word spirit, or Wu Jin's charm demon, breaking their mental defenses wouldn't take much. Regular minds simply couldn't resist ability users. In a world governed by strict rules for using special abilities, especially on civilians, approval was a must. The use of these powers without justification could lead to chaos and even bans from future missions. Zhao Xiaoyu, familiar with these regulations, shook her head. There's not enough proof yet. We can tell they're hiding something, but to act, we need evidence of harm. The situation was tricky. While they suspected the couple was concealing something, they had no concrete proof of wrongdoing. Wu Mingbai, always eager, suggested a risky plan. What if we trick them? Pretend we have the case solved and watch their reaction? The idea was tempting, but it had its flaws. We need something solid to make them crack, Zhao Xiaoyu remarked. Su Bei had a solution. The game room. It was clearly suspicious based on the couple's strange behavior. Before he could explain, Zhao Xiaoyu quickly caught on. Let's investigate the game room, said Si Zhaohua. The room was vibrant with colors, but oddly, no one felt the excitement one would expect from an arcade. Despite their age, they felt strangely irritated. Something wasn't right. With sharp mental awareness, they picked up on the strange shift. One of them contacted the first family again, asking about the grandfather's condition after moving in, especially his sudden bursts of temper. The father, recalling those final days, admitted it was odd his father had grown more irritable. though still gentle with the children, and stayed inside more often. Everyone on the call grasped the unspoken conclusion. The game room might be the Nightmare Beast's lair, but its unknown form made destruction impossible. Still, this strange behavior was enough to suspect the couple. Frustrated, one of them snapped that the couple had pushed them into danger. Wasn't that already harmful? Why bother testing further? They should just report to the ability government and let them handle it. But the other disagreed, anxious they had no hard proof. As a government unit, their unsupported word wasn't enough to make accusations stick. Only then did she realize her mistake on mission. She had failed to gather evidence. Though they knew the truth, without recordings or camera footage, especially of the couple's subtle manipulations, all they had were their own words, and that wouldn't be enough. On her first mission, Zhao Xiaoyu had been diligent in studying the strict regulations on using abilities, but had overlooked an important detail. Her adversary wasn't a nightmare beast after all. This oversight didn't go unnoticed, but she wasn't alone in her reflection. Though it seemed like a minor mistake, the team agreed it was something to learn from, a lesson for the future. They remained supportive, not pinning the blame on Zhao Xiaoyu just because she appeared more experienced. Everyone was accountable for missing the key evidence, everyone except for Su Bi. When Zhao Xiaoyu mentioned the lack of solid evidence, Su Bi calmly raised an eyebrow and pulled out his phone, playing back a recording from their first meeting. The voices of the couple, "Call me Sister Wang, he's Brother Liu," echoed as proof of his foresight. The rest of the team stood in stunned silence, unaware that Su Bi had covered their blind spot with meticulous care. When asked how he thought to record, Su Bi simply explained it was a family habit, his police officer mother's influence guiding his every move. In a world where the lines between reality and fiction blur, Su Bi discovers a realm beyond the manga, a space filled with unfinished ideas, forgotten characters, and discarded plots. Here, he faces the narrative core, a self-repairing entity designed to enforce a last chapter pushing for closure. But Su Bi, determined to break free from the constraints of predetermined endings, creates an anti-ending, a paradoxical loop that defies conclusion, refusing to settle into the confines of plot. As echoes of past characters now mere shadows of who they once were drift around him, Su Bi rejects the traditional battle for closure. Instead, he allows the narrative to remain open-ended, embracing imperfection. With the final pages left blank, he steps into the margin, not as an end, but as a pause, leaving space for others to write their own stories. The manga doesn't end. It simply exists in a perpetual state of becoming. Su Bi's explanation was flawless, but trust was not something easily given anymore. Outside, Li Shu watched Su Bi, eyes gleaming with intrigue. "Looks like there's an issue with their bedroom," he mused. Their strange behavior, like clothes indoors, bundled up outside despite the same temperature, spoke of something more, possibly something advantageous. How did Su Bi figure it out so early? It was curious. Li Shu's smile deepened, filled with obsession. "When we're back, let's spar. I really want to test your strength." But Su Bi, without hesitation, redirected. "Focus on Zhang Tianming." Li Shu sighed, still caught on Zhang Tianming's open secrets. "But he's not in our group. I'll find a new target for now," he relented. He didn't let up, coaxing. "Just one spar. Why not? We're classmates. We'll fight eventually. The sooner, the better." Surprising everyone, Su Bi agreed. Li Shu quickly set a time, worried Su Bi might change his mind. Later, Si Zhaohua approached, eyeing Li Shu curiously. "Why'd you agree?" Su Bi, twirling his fist, smiled warmly. "If he wants a fight, I'll give him one." After so many rejections, he's finally getting his wish. Su Bi found himself in a strange, surreal place beyond the manga's pages, an unwritten realm where discarded characters and incomplete arcs floated freely. Here, he encountered the narrative core, a self-repairing system determined to bring closure to the story. But Su Bi wasn't ready to follow the script. He'd learned that even in this void, he was still bound by the rhythm of expectations, with characters returning as echoes of how they were remembered, not who they were. The narrative core demanded an ending, but Su Bi rejected the idea of a fight. Instead, he created the anti-ending, a paradoxical page that refused to finish, existing in a perpetual state of rewriting itself. As the manga tried to restart, Su Bi fought back by embracing the unfinished, accepting the imperfections and untied threads. By the end, he didn't defeat the system. He let it go, choosing to stay between stories, suspended in a space where endings didn't exist. The manga didn't end, it simply paused, leaving room for new stories to unfold. As Lance Subing gathered intel, the tension rose. This mission was almost over. If the ability government approved the use of abilities on the couple, they could wrap it up today. But if Jiang Tianming's group was slow, their team would take the win. Jiang Tianming's side seemed to be focused on gathering intel about them, and Lan Subing, trusting in his straightforward nature, shared their own progress. The nightmare beast they were hunting only appeared at night, so Jiang Tianming's group had spent the day setting traps. Unlike their team, who knew little about the nightmare beast, Jiang Tianming's side had detailed information on its appearance, abilities, and habits. This nightmare beast wasn't the usual star-shaped one. They were dealing with a pentagon-shaped one that could summon small stars. Contact with these stars caused dizziness, blurred vision, and confusion. It seemed harmless at first, but prolonged exposure led to the total loss of senses and eventual devouring by the beast. The situation was deadly. 5 had already died, and 2 others were left in critical conditions. Yet, under the supervision of the ability government, the nightmare beast had remained in a relatively fixed area, with traps already in place to catch it that night. After hearing about the situation, Lance Subing had no hesitation in sharing their team's progress. It was a fair competition, both sides were eager to win. After the conversation ended, Wu Mingbai couldn't help but sigh, his voice filled with longing. Their mission sounds way more thrilling than ours. As the team leader, Shijiawa voiced his thoughts, expressing some regret, but also acknowledging the fun in battling others. This mission isn't bad either. Fighting with people is endlessly entertaining. His words resonated with the team, who hadn't seen the Nightmare Beast all morning, just engaging in combat with each other instead. Lan Subing, however, couldn't understand why Sister Wang and her group would try to harm them. They didn't ask to come here, it was the couple who had softened to the ability government. If they didn't want them around, they could have simply prevented them from coming. Yet, they allowed it and then tried to cause harm. The question remained unanswered. Even Subi couldn't figure it out, but suspected it was connected to the Nightmare Beast, hinting at some unknown secret. Li Shu reassured them that once the ability government approved their actions, everything would be revealed. After lunch, without any approval from the ability government yet, the team split into 2 groups. Zhao Xiaoyu and Wu Mingbai went to check on the daughter's condition, while the rest stayed at the villa to watch over Sister Wang and her group. By the time they returned, the couple was already back in their room, but the mystery still loomed. Sister Wang was growing impatient and asked, "Can we go back now? We've been here for a while." But Si Zhaohua, though not the best at smooth talking, cleverly devised a plan. He suggested, "Can you stay one more day? The Nightmare Beast might strike tonight, and since it's targeted you, your presence could help us lure it out." Su Bi almost choked. This was just outright using them as bait. The logic was sound, but it was cold and unfeeling. The couple didn't take it well, and Brother Lu's face darkened as he accused them of using them for such a dangerous task. Grabbing Sister Wang's hand, he started to leave, but the group couldn't let them go that easily. If they left, they could run into trouble. Not to mention, their team had to compete with another group, and letting the couple go meant failing the mission. Tension thickened as Li Shu grew impatient with the situation. Li Shu was clearly troubled, and it didn't take much for him to want to act impulsively. He was itching to control the situation with a subtle move, but little did he know, his every thought was already under watch. Subi, ever the mastermind, saw through his irritation in an instant, understanding exactly what was on his mind. With a quick glance, he pulled Li Shu back, warning him without a word. While Li Shu might think his tricks were unnoticed, Subi knew better. He wasn't about to let things spiral out of control, especially with the teachers lurking nearby. If no one was watching, Li Shu's missteps wouldn't affect him personally, but with an audience of teachers, things changed. Subi had no intention of getting involved in a stranger's mess, but the presence of authority meant that one wrong move could put everyone at risk. He knew one thing for sure: no one could escape the watchful eyes in this game, especially when the stakes were so high. Li Shu, caught in the midst of tension, knows that any slip-up on his part could cost the whole group dearly. Su Bi, ever vigilant, steps in with a warning. His words strike Li Shu with a mix of defiance and confusion, the latter stemming from his belief that he had gotten a handle on Subi's nature over time. Why was Subi interfering now, after all? The answer comes swiftly, as Subi motions towards Si Jiahua. Their eyes meet, but Si Jiahua is already 3 steps ahead, abandoning any pretense of friendliness. With a coldness that commands respect, he lays down the stakes. The ability government is here to ensure safety, but only if they trust it. Otherwise, the house will be sealed off, no second chances. The couple hesitates. Their desperation is clear, and Si Jiahua's words find their mark. They didn't want the house sealed, a move they could have easily avoided if they had acted sooner. But now, with no other option, the couple faces the stark truth: they are not in control. Li Shu lightly smiled, his voice calm and gentle. That girl is still very fragile. Another visit could make things worse. His words seemed harmless, but there was an edge to them. Meanwhile, Si Jiahua handled the situation with ease, offering a sense of relief to the group. Recognizing that Subi had helped smooth things over, Li Shu softened his tone further, though still with a subtle smile. "We don't mind changing people, but since you brought it up..." Before he could finish, Sister Wang quickly cut him off. No, I was just saying, how could we really make a child do this?" Her quick response hinted at her concern. If something were to happen to the girl, they would be the ones blamed. Both she and Brother Lu felt the weight of their earlier aggressive words. As the atmosphere shifted, their fear of the stronger party became evident. Soon, Wu Mingbai and Zhao Xiaoyu returned, their expressions grim, confirming the girl's deteriorating condition. Zhao Xiaoyu sighed deeply, offering the troubling news. The spots on her body are a lighter bluish black. She's weak, almost as if she's been ill for a long time, and she seems to be showing signs of autism. Sister Wang, visibly shaken, lowered her gaze, her worry mounting as the reality of the situation set in. As usual, Brother Lu acted oblivious to everything around him. By 7 in the evening, Si Zhaohua's phone pinged with a soft ding, a message from the ability government. Action approved. The team exchanged knowing glances, silently deciding that Li Shu would take the lead. But with no idea of the nightmare beast's whereabouts, they first decided to escort the couple out of the villa. After a moment's thought, Li Shu calmly suggested, "This room is indeed dangerous. You can step outside for a bit." Upon hearing this, Sister Wang and Brother Lu quickly agreed, following the group outside. Once they were out, Lan Subing shut the door, and Li Shu acted. He didn't need to engage closely with ordinary people. A simple illusion cast from a distance was enough to daze them. Wu Mingbai, usually not so polite, asked curiously, "What illusion did you create?" His gaze shifted to Lan Subing, whose water blue eyes glimmered behind him, and they understood. With a smirk, Li Shu closed his eyes, replying, "I preset an underworld illusion. Hope they enjoy it." His preset illusions, more refined and realistic than those created in the moment, were something to be reckoned with. In this gripping scene, Li Shu uses his powers to create a powerful illusion that brings Sister Wang and Brother Lu to tears, forcing them to confess everything in their fear. They explain how, months after moving into a new home, they encountered a terrifying, ghostly presence. Initially, they panicked over strange spots appearing on their bodies and considered contacting the authorities, but a menacing face emerged from the wall, threatening them with instant death if they didn't comply. Under pressure, they were forced to bring in more people, believing this would ensure their safety. Despite their pleas of innocence and fear, the truth of their dealings with the entity begins to unfold, and Li Shu listens carefully, preparing to expose their connection to the supernatural threat. Brother Lu and Sister Wang confessed they'd started renovating the house, trying to meet its eerie demands with a stream of workers. But guilt weighed heavily on her voice. It was wrong, and they knew it. Brother Lu cried, justifying their choices with desperation. If they hadn't acted, they would have died. Li Shu, still cloaked in his King of Hell persona, warned them coldly. Even if the workers weren't immediate victims, harm was still done. Their fate? A slow unraveling, a sickness delayed. As panic built, Sister Wang revealed the creature's cryptic advice. It led them to sleep above the game room, where it claimed safety lingered. Then came its final whisper. They could now call the ability government. But that invitation rang hollow. Either the beast was ready for war, or it planned to slither past inspection unnoticed. Silence followed. Li Shu dropped the act and asked the only question that mattered. Now what comes next? Si Zhaohua, deep in thought, suddenly had an idea. Let them perform in a play. Moments later, the villa's front door creaked open again, revealing Sister Wang and Brother Lu, their faces pale and filled with unease. After exchanging a quiet look, Sister Wang spoke up. Those ability users went off to eat. We should ask the Great Lord what to do next. Brother Lu immediately agreed. Yes, let's go. In the game room, Sister Wang turned to face the wall and asked, Lord, what should we do next? Should we find a way to drive them away? The wall bulged, forming a 1-meter-high human face that scolded them. Bring them back! Outside, hearing the voice through the call, Wu Mingbai made a face of confusion. That voice is strange. Lan Subing, nodding slightly, agreed. It sounds like walls scraping against each other. The voice was jarring, and it was impressive that the couple managed to stay unfazed in such a confined space. At first, when they heard that the Nightmare Beast could speak, they were shocked, even wondering if there was human involvement. But now, it seemed clear it wasn't really speaking, just mimicking speech through other means. Can you sense the Nightmare Beast now? Si Zhaohua asked Wu Jin. Wu Jin was certain. Yes, I believe the Nightmare Beast's form is that wall. The air around them was thick with the beast's ominous presence. Lan Subing, ever pragmatic, questioned, why not destroy it? But Zhao Xiaoyu was quick to reason. That wall's load-bearing. The ability government wouldn't risk the villa unless absolutely necessary. Destroying a typical building wouldn't have taken this long. After all, they exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they had no simple solution for a mid-level nightmare beast. These creatures had unpredictable weaknesses, unlike regular animals, where brains or hearts were typically the fatal points. With no easy answer, Si Zhaohua suggested, let's eliminate it with mental energy. This method, especially effective for mid-level nightmare beasts, was no simple feat, but combining it with abilities like Li Shu's illusion to amplify the mental energy attack could be their way forward. The real challenge lay in the beast's elusive form hidden within a wall that wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. It looked like a normal attack, just way more intense with boosted mental energy. Subi Ei didn't have that problem. His mental energy was so advanced it could materialize directly, making his strikes clean and forceful. Wu Mingbai frowned, sensing the nightmare beast wouldn't show itself so easily with them nearby. It didn't want to be found, let alone controlled. Lan Subing, quieter than usual, offered to try. Her word spirit might coax the creature out. At least with nightmare beasts, she wasn't anxious, and that made her power sharper. The plan had one advantage. They didn't have to worry about tipping the beast off. It was already stuck its body literally part of the wall. Inside the game room, Sister Wang and Brother Lu were dismissed, leaving Wu Jin and Zhao Xiaoyu to stand guard. Their mental energy wasn't strong, but their skills still mattered. Wu Jin, though often overlooked, had solid combat experience. Zhao Xiaoyu was better, her training focused on physical combat, and she could outfight most of her class. Two ordinary adults, no problem. In the room, Si Zhaohua activated his angel ability. Normally, his massive wings were awkward indoors, but after weeks of refining, he'd learned to shrink them. Now they were palm-sized. Everyone saw them, and despite the tension, had to fight the urge to laugh. Lan Subing was the first to crack, her laughter ringing through the room. Once the ice was broken, the others followed suit, clutching their stomachs in fits of laughter. Subi, always quick to act, snapped a photo with his phone, turning off the flash this time to avoid detection. Si Zhaohua, though tolerant of teasing looks, couldn't hold back his frustration at the laughter. He retorted, "What's so funny? If I hadn't shrunk them for more space, would I have needed to do this?" The others quickly quieted, trying to calm him down. Li Shu, in a soft tone, said, "It's cute this way, more approachable than big wings." Si Zhaohua snorted, looking at Lan Subing, who had laughed first and was now shrinking into a corner. "Hurry and use your ability," he urged. Lan Subing, now serious, pulled down her scarf and coughed before speaking the words, "Appear." A face emerged from the wall, clearly reluctant and ferocious. Seizing the moment, Lan Subing said, "Fix," but immediately regretted it as a violent cough overtook her. The effort drained her, and her pale cheeks flushed, stepping back in silence. With the appearance of the face, Subi finally saw the Nightmare Beast's destiny compass, a black compass with a large pointer pointing down, signaling decline, while the small pointer leaned left, indicating a chance for short-term victory. Subi raised an eyebrow, sensing things were more complicated than they seemed. He could adjust the small pointer, shifting it slightly to the right, and with his mental energy, it would only cost him half his reserves. But doing good deeds anonymously was never his style. He knew the protagonist team would take care of the Nightmare Beast eventually, so he decided to leave it to them. Meanwhile, the others, unaware of his discovery, seized the chance created by Lan Subing. In a powerful display, their combined abilities surged toward the Nightmare Beast, unleashing a wave of mental energy. The sensation was unfamiliar to Subi, who, with his advanced mental energy, felt as if his power was becoming a sword, striking the beast directly. He saw it in his mind's eye as a mass of black mist, its form thinning with every attack. After a relentless barrage, the beast's face let out a piercing screech and melted away like muddy water. Wu Jin sensed the change and confidently declared, "It's gone." The aura of the Nightmare Beast vanished. Everyone except Subi sighed in relief and grew excited. Wu Mingbai, trying to appear serious, pulled out his phone and said, "We're all in the same class. Since we completed the mission, we should let the other team know." The others exchanged knowing smiles. Jiang Tianming's team hadn't messaged, indicating they probably hadn't finished yet. This secret competition was theirs to win. Subi sighed. Subi hadn't intended to remind them, but he knew that if Wu Mingbai's message went through, it would be an embarrassment for the entire team, including himself. He couldn't let that happen. "Don't send it. The mission is probably not over yet," Subi warned, stopping them. "If it could be defeated so easily, why would it provoke the ability government?" His reasoning made sense, and yet, what truly convinced everyone was the small, left-leaning pointer. It wasn't a sign of defeat, it meant it wasn't over yet. Subi didn't feel the need to explain the full extent of his ability. His persona was well established, and his logic was enough to get his point across. The team couldn't ignore the fact that a mid-level Nightmare Beast had some intelligence. It wouldn't have challenged the ability government if it had been easily defeated. It wasn't hidden well, someone could find it as they did. The room went quiet as everyone reflected on Subi's words. They could ask him for guidance, but their pride got in the way. Though Subi hadn't been heavily involved in the mission, his contributions had been crucial. It felt like they were relying too much on him, and they were determined to solve it themselves. Subi, caught in a realm beyond narration, faces an unexpected challenge. Trapped in a space where discarded ideas and unfinished stories linger, he is pursued by the narrative core, a system determined to force a final chapter before chaos consumes all tales. As characters return in distorted forms, echoes of their past selves, Subi is forced to confront the idea of closure, but he won't conform to the expected plot. Instead, he creates the anti-ending, a paradoxical page that rewrites itself infinitely. Fueled not by the plot, but by emotion. As the manga spirals toward an endless void, Subi chooses to embrace imperfection, letting go of the system's demands. His final act? He leaves behind a blank page, symbolizing the pause between stories, where endings are not written, and characters are free to roam beyond the confines of panels. Wu Mingbai couldn't help but laugh, his amusement echoing through the room after hearing the plan. It was far too obvious to work, though it might delay things. It was only a temporary solution. Meanwhile, Sister Wang and Brother Liu were left slumped against the wall, their faces grim, bruised from the earlier altercation. Zhao Xiaoyu and Wu Jin, on the other hand, appeared untouched. Zhao Xiaoyu, not wasting any time, asked if everything had been resolved. The answer came with a shake of the head from Si Zhaohua, who quickly recounted the events. Zhao Xiaoyu agreed with his assessment and shot a glance at the pair. "They seem pretty docile now," she mused, then turned to Wu Jin. "Can you handle them alone? I want to check upstairs." Wu Jin gave a silent nod, already feeling confident after the battle. He wasn't keen on fighting more creatures, and after the previous encounter, he knew he could handle the two without issue. Sister Wang and Brother Liu, however, were filled with despair. They hadn't expected the once gentle girl to be so ruthless, nor had they realized that the quiet boy was far from weak. They shouldn't have bothered escaping, just got themselves beaten for nothing. Reaching the bedroom, a fresh problem popped up. Lan Subing couldn't use word spirit again without frying her mental energy. With training days ahead, draining her wasn't an option. Even if she wanted to, the others wouldn't allow it. Zhao Xiaoyu, quiet and bitter since seeing the girl and her devastated family, suddenly snapped, "It can't leave this house. Let's hit every wall till it shows itself." The method was tedious, but solid. 5 walls, including the ceiling. They had time. The Nightmare Beast freaked out, poked its face out near the door, and squealed. Spare me, I'll offer benefits. Subi checked the destiny compass. All signs pointed right, especially the little one. It was safe now. Wu Mingbai leaned in, all innocent curiosity. What benefits? He didn't plan on mercy, just wanted to see what a creature like that could even offer. The answer came sharp and eerie. Save people. In this twisted, dreamlike chapter, the group faces a cunning beast that speaks in cryptic, minimal words. Subi, amused by its manner, can't help but compare it to another's speech, sharing a brief laugh with the others. However, the others, less familiar with the context, find themselves confused at first. A trick or a genuine plea for mercy? The group realizes it must act quickly, fearing a disastrous misstep. Their earlier efforts prove helpful, making the second attack more efficient, destroying the beast's visit. After its disappearance, tension lingers in the air, and a hesitant question is asked, did they really finish it this time? With a nonchalant tilt of his head, Subei's response seals their confidence. The victory is sweet, but there's no time to waste, as Wu Mingbai eagerly rushes to share the news. As the phone lit up, his face turned to stone, and with a slow lift of his eyes came the quiet sting of truth. The mission was already done by someone else. Darkness had fallen by the time they reached the hotel, but not nearly as heavy as the storm on their faces. The weight of victory snatched away in the final heartbeat. They'd run faster, thought sharper, certain they'd outpace the others, only to be edged out by a whisper, left stewing in disbelief. Across the room, the other team's laughter floated like confetti, even the calm ones carrying an easy spark in their eyes. The only soul untouched by rivalry was the boy bouncing with puppy-like glee, wagging an invisible tail as he barked out how thrilling, how fun it all was, already begging for the next round. And while he shielded the quiet one without thinking, that calm figure stayed unmoved, unbothered by losing, knowing the story's center of gravity had always tilted elsewhere. Then came the soft footfalls from above, and with a smile like a closing curtain, the words dropped. They'd done well. No mistakes. And after a day's rest, the path to another unknown would open. After ensuring everyone got back to their rooms, she returned to hers, a troubled look on her face. We've been to that different space before. It's risky. Are we really going to send them there? She asked. Her voice tinged with hesitation. Meng Huai, however, was unfazed, replying, It's exactly the level of danger they need. With us keeping an eye on them, they'll be fine. We just need to watch out for Black Flash. Lei Zine added, the Academy's investigation found that Black Flash is researching something. The last battle was about capturing more ability users for their experiments, but we still don't know what they're after. Concern spread across their faces, especially when Yehlin asked, the school still doesn't know their research goals? Without that, we can't prepare properly. Meng Huai, however, was resolute. We can't let them take our students. Be extra careful the day after tomorrow. I sense they'll make a move again. With the serious talk out of the way, Lei Zine lightened the mood with a grin. By the way, did you hear? Skydome Ability Academy wants their students to train with ours. They asked for our opinion. Meng Huai's words echoed with a sneer. I'm sure my students will be fine in that different space, but theirs? Not so much. Big eyes, small stomach courting death. Lei Zine, with a grin tugging at his lips, asked, So, what's your decision? Even though the question hung in the air, Lei Zine already knew Meng Huai's answer. Agree, of course, Meng Huai replied effortlessly. It wasn't his problem. If those students wanted to test fate, he'd let them. The ever-just Yehlin frowned, shaking his head. That's not right. The teacher's sins shouldn't fall on the students. With a knowing smile, Lei Zine rubbed his face. You think those students don't know what they're getting into? Some come from good families, and their teachers would have prepared them. If they choose to join, the blame can be shared. Yehlin hesitated, his conscience still tugging at him. But they're just kids. They don't know better. Leaning back lazily, Meng Huai gave a casual reply. Then they should face the consequences. His hand ruffled Yehlin's hair as he added with a smirk, If you really object, I'll refuse. Despite his playful demeanor, Meng Huai knew when to listen to his companion's concerns. Yehlin swallowed her doubts, masking concern with calm words, saying that the Academy's teachers would surely guard their students just as closely, that even if that strange dimension was perilous, harm might not come, but tomorrow the students would decide for themselves. Meanwhile, in another room, Two figures lay in the soft quiet after washing up, the night settling around them. One turned, curiosity flickering, and asked if the other had felt involved today, for a mission like hunting a mid-level nightmare beast seemed a poor match for the gift of prophecy. Yet the other's nod carried quiet pride. He had used fragments of vision, shards of tomorrow, to uncover the creature's weakness. The idea shocked his companion. How could glimpses of the future expose such a thing? A pause stretched, silence heavy, until the answer came. In those fragments, they saw themselves defeating the beast by exploiting its flaw. Silence deepened, the room holding its breath, before another question broke it. What led to that discovery in the vision? The reply was immediate but hollow. He didn't know, only that the fragment showed them striking true. And again, the quiet returned, thick and unbroken. Subi found himself lost in a web of fate, pondering the concept of causal loops. If the future selves discovered a weakness through Feng Lan's glimpse of the prophecy fragment, it created an endless loop. The future leads to the past, and the past becomes the trigger for the future. The thought was both unsettling and mesmerizing. A loop that couldn't be broken, yet offered a strange glimpse into the workings of fate. For those obsessed with understanding it, this was an opportunity to dive deep into the threads of destiny. However, neither Subi nor Feng Lan were inclined to waste time on such matters. After a brief silence, Subi broke the tension with a smile, suggesting, "You should chat with your past self more often. Who knows, one day you might meet your future self in a destiny fragment." Feng Lan was speechless, surprised by Subi's carefree attitude. Although he had warned Subei about the influence of fate, it became clear that Subei's ability to alter fate gave him the confidence to believe he could break free from any loop, no matter how closed it seemed. The next day, Subi planned to relax and spend the day at the hotel, indulging in some manga. However, at 10 in the morning, Mo Xiaotian knocked on the door, urging everyone to explore the area. Subei sighed, put down his manga, and turned to Feng Lan, asking if he wanted to join. Mo Xiaotian, persistent as always, wouldn't take no for an answer, so it was easier to agree. Feng Lan, indifferent to where they went, simply nodded. To their surprise, Si Zhaohua and Jiang Tianming were at the door, there to provide updates about the mission. Si Zhaohua shared that the girl they'd helped had fully recovered and could return to school after some rest, while Sister Wang and Brother Liu, who had aided the Nightmare Beast, were being detained by the Ability Government. Jiang Tianming added that the group, including Qing Qing, had also been detained. Subei was curious about Qing Qing's punishment, especially after she had caused Zhou Renji significant embarrassment, though he was surprised she was still alive. Si Zhaohua, more informed than the others, replied that the Zhou family was still dissatisfied with the Ability Government's punishment and ongoing negotiations were taking place. Then, a notification pinged on his phone, leaving him stunned. Qing Qing had escaped! This shocking news made everyone freeze in surprise. Qing Qing had been under the Ability Government's detention, and her escape now hinted at their incompetence. Si Zhaohua immediately questioned how such a thing could happen, pointing out that Qing Qing had no escape abilities. Subi, however, raised an eyebrow and subtly implied that there might be more to this than met the eye. Meng Huai, now upstairs, pieced it together quickly, his eyes narrowing as he turned to Subi. "Are you saying she was rescued by Black Flash?" With no escape abilities of her own, Qing Qing's sudden disappearance seemed impossible unless someone with more power helped her escape, perhaps someone the Ability Government had underestimated. The discussion about the punishment dragged on, leaving tension hanging in the air when a sharp ding cut through the room. His phone lit up and his expression froze as he read the message. Qing Qing had escaped. Shock rippled through everyone like a comic sound effect, wide eyes and gaping mouths practically drawn above their heads. She'd been under the Ability Government's lock and key. For her to slip away now made them look like amateurs. Si Zhaohua blurted out the obvious. How could they let her go when she didn't even have any kind of getaway skill? Subi arched a brow, his words heavy with unspoken meaning, suggesting something wasn't adding up. The others stayed clueless, but one figure, just arriving on the scene, caught the hint and narrowed his eyes. Was this the work of Black Flash? After all, if Qing Qing couldn't break free herself, someone must have reached in and pulled her out, unless the so-called Guardians had been spectacularly careless. They shouldn't have tried escaping it, earned them a pointless beating. Once in the bedroom, another problem hit. Lan Subing couldn't use Word Spirit again so soon, or her mental energy would collapse. With more days of training ahead, draining her now was out of the question. Even if she agreed, no one else would. Zhao Xiaoyu, still brooding after seeing the girl and thinking of her own sister, suddenly snapped, "It can't leave this house! Let's break each wall until it shows itself! Tedious, yes, but solid!" With 5 surfaces to test, they had the time. That threat spooked the nightmare beast, which panicked and shoved its face out of the door wall, screeching, "Spare me! I'll offer benefits!" Subi's destiny compass confirmed no more twists, all signs aligned. "What benefits?" Wu Mingbai asked, eyes gleaming with fake innocence. He didn't plan on mercy, he just wanted to know what a nightmare beast could possibly trade. The reply came sharp. "Save people." After several rounds, Mo Xiaotian finally gave up, exclaiming, "No more, no more. My luck's run out. How many times have I lost? Wait, why aren't you guys calling landlord? It's always me." Little did he know, Subi and Zhang Tianming were working together against him, and he thought it was just bad luck. Feeling a bit guilty for bullying him, Subi decided to relent. Let's switch players. Landlord, a classic card game, was well known and loved by everyone. Si Zhaohua and Feng Lan, both sharp, quickly picked up the rules after a few rounds. When Mo Zhaoxin quit, Si Zhaohua, intrigued, stepped in, saying, "I'll play." This time, the game was more balanced, with each player taking turns winning. But after a while, the game became boring. Subi's eyes sparkled as he proposed, "How about we play using our abilities?" Si Zhaohua, curious, asked, "How would that work?" Subi smiled innocently. "Don't worry about it, just use your abilities while playing." Zhang Tianming immediately saw through the plan, exclaiming, "That's just cheating!" Besides, whose ability here is even related to cards? Subi, smirking inside for being caught, dropped the idea and suggested, "How about something else, truth or dare?" Another timeless classic. Mo Zhaoxin, sulking just moments ago, suddenly sprang to his feet. "I'll go get the others," he exclaimed. As he gathered the group, Jiang Tianming and Feng Lan explained the rules for their truth or dare game. Before long, everyone had arrived. It was rare for anyone to refuse such group bonding activities, especially with Mo Xiaotian leading the charge. Sube, who had no interest in resisting, was just one of many who couldn't say no. Subi had already found an online version of the game, one without any awkward romantic challenges. Players drew a card from either the truth or dare pile, then had to complete the task. This version made sure the tasks stayed appropriate for the group, avoiding any uncomfortable situations like kissing or biting chocolate sticks, since this was a shonen manga. The same deck was used with 2 Joker cards requiring their holders to pick between truth or dare, making sure neither chose the same option consecutively. For truth, Lan Subing used her word spirit to ensure everyone answered honestly, and anyone who refused faced a penalty. Bitter melon juice, courtesy of Mutirin, who had inexplicably packed a giant bag of bitter melon powder for the trip. Unsurprisingly, Subi had the worst luck, just as expected. He drew the Joker card first. Paired with Wu Jin, another unlucky soul, they quickly decided who would take on truth and who would do the dare. Subi, not minding a challenge, took the dare, while Wu Jin eagerly chose truth. Wu Jin rarely spoke to anyone, barely offering words beyond a select few, and even then, only one of them truly knew his secrets. A half smile curved as a card was drawn, and the task flashed sharp in its challenge. "Say one comment about the person here you dislike the most." The room froze, curiosity thick, tension thicker, no one daring to breathe too loud. Silence stretched until a sly calm settled. He strolled around, teasing suspense, then pulled out a mirror with theatrical flair. His reflection stared back as he declared with mock ease, "Truly a very handsome person." A shout broke the hush. "Hey, that's cheating. You can't dislike yourself." But the mischief was already done. In a world where characters are shaped by the expectations of their readers, Wu Jin, a quiet and reserved figure, rarely engages with others except for Subi and Zhao Xiaoyu. While Zhao Xiaoyu might be unaware of his secrets, Subi knows much more. When a challenge arises in the form of a card game with a provocative task, Subi is asked to comment on the person he dislikes most. The room falls silent. Everyone too nervous to speak, wondering if they might be the one Subi dislikes. But Subi, ever the clever one, turns the moment to his advantage. With a playful glint, he reveals a mirror and comments, "Truly a very handsome person." His answer is met with a shout from the others, but it's too late, he's already turned the game on its head. The atmosphere crackles with both amusement and tension as Subei outsmarts them all, showing that in a world of challenges, sometimes wit is the greatest weapon. Doesn't count, do it again! Subei turned, a half smile playing on his lips. Who says I can't dislike myself? His words struck everyone in the room. Self-loathing wasn't unusual. Jiang Tianming, Wu Mingbai, and Lan Subing had all experienced it. But hearing it from Subei, with his aura of confidence and freedom, felt unsettling. How could someone so sure of themselves, so untethered, possibly dislike who they were? Yet, those deep purple eyes of his remained unfathomable. No one could tell if he was joking or speaking with genuine seriousness. Without any explanation, Subei tucked the mirror away. Next. The next pair was Mo Xiaotian and Jiang Tianming, and the game continued with its unpredictable twists. Mo Xiaotian, cheerful as ever, jumped in. Wow, my turn. Dare, dare, I'm picking dare. The app quickly revealed a dare card. Call your closest person and tell them you're in trouble. Most undercover agents would panic, scrambling for a believable excuse. But Mo Xiaoxian, with his usual lack of subtlety, dialed without hesitation. On the other end, a voice that seemed to carry years of wisdom answered, How did you get exposed? But before Mo Xiaotian could respond, the old man caught on, realizing that his grandson wasn't in any real danger. It was all just part of the game. As the game continued, the group found themselves caught in a whirlwind of humor and mystery. Wu Mingbai, with his infectious laughter, teased Mo Xiaoxian about being caught red-handed, leaving everyone in stitches. But Subei, knowing more about Mo's true identity, saw through the joke, sensing the hint of danger beneath the laughter. Meanwhile, Jiang Tianming, unwilling to let the opportunity slip by, chose truth. But when his turn came, he answered a vague question about regretting his talents, leaving the group unsatisfied, and sarcastic comments flew from Li Shu. Jiang Tianming, though annoyed, kept his cool, rolling his eyes at the teasing, determined not to let the situation rattle him. The playful banter flowed effortlessly, but a subtle undercurrent of tension lingered, reminding Subei that beneath the surface, there were truths yet to be revealed. Jiang Tianming hesitated, the weight of his thoughts visible before he declared, No regrets. His answer, though firm, hinted at a deeper conflict. The card in his hand, marked with talents, was more than just a label. It symbolized the essence of one's abilities. Most people cherished their powers, even the weakest of them, but Jiang Tianming was different. Was he uncertain about his own power? It wasn't weak, far from it. Yet, the thought lingered. The air grew heavier as the intense rounds took a toll, leaving many to retreat in embarrassment. By evening, an invitation came. Ye Lin offered them the chance to train alongside Skydome Academy's students in the same different space, but without interference. The unspoken challenge was clear. A showdown. No one hesitated. Rivalries fueled their eagerness to face Skydome's arrogance head-on. And so, the stage was set. The next morning, the S-Class students gathered, ready for the new space. Their gear packed, their minds focused. Before they departed, Lei Zine gave a stern warning. This different space is unlike any other you've faced. They gathered, expecting a challenge, only to hear the warning that this time, the path ahead wasn't just about strange landscapes, but something far more unpredictable. Faces twisted in confusion. What could be beyond nature itself? The teacher didn't spill the secret, only raising the stakes. The beasts ahead were no longer the low-level nightmares they'd faced before, but tougher, meaner creatures that demanded caution. Then the real blow landed. Entry meant instant scattering, each of them tossed to different corners of this warped space, their only hope of leaving tied to finding the one hidden exit. Watches were handed out, familiar from past battles, but with a twist. Smash the glass and no one would come to pull you out. It would only cry for help and throw up a temporary shield. That tiny assurance eased their shoulders, knowing at least someone was watching from the outside. One voice dared to ask about missions, like before, but the teacher shook his head. This time, survival was the only goal. The map would show where they stood, not where freedom lay, and the silence after that spoke louder than any warning. Yi Lin warned her classmates with a serious yet gentle expression, urging them to team up as soon as possible. This different space is tough, and you'll need teammates. The watch's shield locks into place once activated, and it's a tight fit for 3 people. With teammates, you get 2 chances to use the shield, buying precious time, she explained. A team of 3 was the ideal, as the shields could hold long enough for the teachers to rescue them. Everyone nodded in agreement, understanding the importance of teamwork. Though some were lone wolves, they weren't foolish enough to go in alone. Yi Lin made it clear that safety came first. Meng Huai, ever the skeptic, reminded them, be kind, but don't be too charitable out there. There might be other ability users, and unlike last time, you can't trust everyone. With that, the teachers wasted no time and Lei Xin activated his ability. A circular formation appeared beneath their feet, enveloping everyone. The next moment, Subi felt a dizzying sensation, and as his world spun, he found himself in an entirely unfamiliar space. The small living room was packed 15 students and 3 teachers crammed in, with space even tighter thanks to 2 bulky figures. Lei Zhen, get out! Meng Huai barked at the overweight man next to him. Red-faced and struggling to squeeze through, Lei Zhen finally managed to exit, opening up the cramped space for the others to follow. Instead of a hotel, the teachers took them to a plaza outside the different space. Unlike the desert version, this one was nearly empty. Why so few people? Chi Huang asked. AI Baozhu with a smug look answered, because not many can handle mid-level nightmare beasts. Her arrogance didn't go unchallenged, but the teachers didn't disagree. After all, there were only about 10,000 capable of facing such beasts out of the 50,000 graduated ability users. Talent was key in this line of work. Despite being first years, Si Zhaohua, Subi, and Chi Huang could already do things most ability users never would, but dealing with mid-level nightmare beasts was still beyond them. In the midst of a dire situation, the academy pushes its students harder, forcing them to face the challenge alone. Unlike previous group missions, the stakes are higher now, and the students must rise to the occasion. Their encounter with another team, one they had agreed to train with, is not a surprise. However, this time, the other team members stay silent, glaring at them in frustration. The atmosphere is tense, yet the focus remains on the task ahead. As the group enters the unknown, the journey begins with quiet steps, and the real challenge only starts when Subi faces towering walls in an unfamiliar space, where choices are limited and paths uncertain. Without hesitation, Subi sets his sights on the closest dot on his map, ready to forge ahead into the unknown, leaving behind the past confrontations and preparing for what lies ahead in the enigmatic landscape. The other side seemed to be on the same page. The red dot started moving toward him. He reached a dead end, but 2 exits lay before him. Subi quickly realized he had walked into a maze. It was unexpected, but intriguing. This wasn't just a puzzle. It felt like a gift for someone like him. If only he could fly up and get a bird's eye view. But no, this maze was deep, and wandering through it wasn't an option. Time would be wasted, and his energy drained. He had a sinking feeling. Meeting up with teammates seemed unlikely. Sure enough, after 10 minutes of aligning the dots on the map, no teammates appeared, only a high wall in his way. Is anyone there? Can you hear me? Subi shouted, hoping for a response. If they could hear, that would make things easier. He waited, but no reply came. The red dot remained still, showing the other person was also trying to communicate. Subi couldn't help but admire Zhao Xiaoyu's foresight. Su, be armed with exclusive walkie-talkies for ability users, connected to all of S-Class. Quickly turned it on and spoke to the group. Knowing they'd be scattered in a different space, she handed out the devices so everyone could stay in contact. Flipping the switch, she asked, "Who's on my other side?" Lingyu quickly responded, "It's me." Subi, always thinking ahead, decided, "Stay there. I'll see if I can loop around to you." Lingyu agreed, knowing that while her ability was destructive, it was less effective alone, and Subi's strength would make them safer as a team. After a long detour through a maze of wrong paths, Subi finally found himself facing another high wall. Frustrated, he pulled out his mirror and adjusted his destiny compass, hoping to find a new way forward. After expending valuable mental energy, he chose a path and pressed on. Half an hour later, he met Lingyu, who, visibly relieved, lay beside a defeated black nightmare tiger, its body riddled with grotesque sores. Lingyu and Subi stand before the fallen nightmare tiger, discussing their abilities. Lingyu reveals her unique power, Plague, which doesn't kill quickly, but weakens enemies fast. Subi, understanding the nature of her ability, speculates that she must have used it to weaken the beast before delivering the final blow. As Lingyu confirms, Subi contemplates the significance of the tiger's condition. They both check their watches and realize the others are far away. Subi suggests they search for an exit, believing there must be clues hidden in this place. He turns to Lingyu, asking if it's safe to touch the tiger now, and she agrees. With confirmation, Subi proceeds to dissect the creature, his method influenced by past academy training, though he's a bit rusty. The scene highlights the tension between their abilities and the mysterious environment they must navigate together. After thoroughly examining the tiger, nothing unusual was found. The claws and fangs were kept valuable for the Nightmare Beast market, while the pelt, though potentially valuable, was rendered useless by the source. "Let's wander and mark the way," Subi said, feeling resigned. He'd been marking walls ever since realizing they were trapped in a maze. Lingyu followed without objection. They hadn't gone far when they encountered two students from the Sky Dome Ability Academy. The tension was palpable as the two approached with smirks, clearly expecting the others to retreat. Su, Bei, and Ling, you exchanged a brief glance, neither planning to back down. When they met, a boy in a blue hoodie sneered. "Well, if it isn't Endless Ability Academy, folks, what a coincidence." "Ling, you said nothing." Subi flashed a half smile. "Quite a coincidence." Perhaps provoked by their calmness, the boy's tone turned sharp. "Since we've met, let's travel together." "We can look out for each other, right?" The malicious grin said it all. Subi knew they were planning to use them as pathfinders, tossing them into danger like shields. But two could play that game who would be the shield. It remained to be seen. It all came down to raw combat power. Before any reply could be made, Ling Yu coldly shut it down. Number. A lone wolf by instinct, she might have tolerated teaming up with classmates in this treacherous different space, but not with shady outsiders. The two boys clearly hadn't expected rejection. After all, how dangerous could two underclassmen be? One of them, wearing a bucket hat, scoffed at Ling Yu's defiance, but his buddy in a blue hoodie cut in with a venomous grin. "We're offering to protect you. Refuse, and for your own good, we'll have to remove you." A veiled threat. Everyone was here for training, shielded by school protocols, but triggering one's protection would mean elimination. Subi stood quiet, letting Ling Yu lead. She did with finality. A sickly green mist swept forward, followed by her lightning-fast kick that hurled the blue hoodie boy into a wall. Then Subi unleashed his turn, catching the bucket hat boy midair, slamming him down, pinning his arms, and casually sitting on him like he wasn't even a threat. The other boy wasn't done, springing up the charge, but Ling Yu was faster, intercepting him without mercy. Her focus on mental energy rather than physical techniques left her at a disadvantage, especially against the boy in the blue hoodie. Though her abilities drained him, causing a coughing fit, he quickly shifted tactics and activated his own power. His transformation was shocking. Gray fur sprouted across his face and neck, fangs grew, and his ears became wolf-like, while his eyes glowed an eerie green. His new wolf-related ability dramatically enhanced his strength and speed, and with a sinister grin, he charged at her, claws ready. Ling, you struggled to defend herself, the narrow space making it impossible to dodge, and a momentary lapse led to a sharp cut on her arm. With blood dripping, she stepped back, calculating that if she could just wait for the infection to take hold, he would weaken, but the time was running out, she would lose first. Seeing this, Subi intervened, knocking out the boy in the bucket hat before launching a kick to disrupt the attack. Annoyed, the boy in the blue hoodie sneered, questioning Subi's chances, but he too was beginning to feel the effects of the earlier weakness, his throat itching and limbs growing heavy. With a resolve to end things quickly, Subi knew the green-haired girl's power was at play, but he greatly underestimated the blue hoodie boy. Although Subi's speed and strength were compromised by his own ability, his technique far outstripped the boys in advantage, sharpened by years of intense training praised by a master. When it came to combat, unless the gap in physical prowess was overwhelming, technique would always reign supreme. As the battle dragged on, the boy realized his defeat was inevitable. The strain of using his ability drained his mental energy, and the weakening resistance to the toxin took its toll. Finally, he couldn't suppress the violent coughing fit that ensued. Subi stopped, knowing the boy couldn't win, especially with Ling Yu's support. Turning to her, he casually asked, "Your hand okay?" Ling Yu, ever cold and stoic, nodded slightly in gratitude, acknowledging that without Subi, she'd likely have fallen. As the boy's coughing subsided, his fury boiled over, only to be replaced by horror. His clenched fist was stained with blood, a result of his own violent coughing. "What did you do? I'm coughing blood?" he sputtered in disbelief. With wide eyes and trembling, blood-streaked lips, he looked completely terrified. Subi, sensing the growing tension, turned to Ling Yu. Without waiting for a response, he explained, "If you eliminate with your teammate, you'll be fine. Otherwise." His words trailed off, the implication more chilling than any threat. The boy, visibly shaken, didn't dare hesitate. In a world where blood coughing was still a serious matter, even advanced medicine couldn't guarantee survival. Just before he left, the boy shot a warning. "If I'm not better after this, your school will be held responsible." Subi remained calm, watching as the boy pressed his teammate's chest, both of them vanishing into thin air. Before he could speak, a loud rumble broke the silence, followed by the sight of a giant stone pillar shaped like a horse, charging toward him. A horse? Subi gasped in surprise. What kind of creatures are these? With a swift pull, he yanked Ling Yu back into a side passage just in time as the massive stone horse sped by, almost crashing into them. Subi chased after it, watching as it turned and disappeared out of sight. Ling Yu, still in awe, asked, "What was that, a nightmare beast?" After a brief pause, Subi could only nod uncertainly. Maybe? A maze with a different space is one thing, but stone horses? The mystery deepened as the two continued forward, unsure of what lay ahead. In a realm where reality meets unfinished narratives, Subi finds himself in an ethereal void, surrounded by discarded characters and forgotten plots. His world is no longer bound by the typical flow of story, but by the mysterious narrative core, a force determined to bring everything to a close, whether it's ready or not. As his former allies return, not as they were, but as echoes of readers' memories, Subi realizes the core is demanding an end, a final resolution. Instead of giving in, he creates the anti-ending, a paradox that constantly rewrites itself through raw emotion, defying the system's rigid expectations. In the end, Subi doesn't defeat the system. He simply accepts it, leaving behind a blank page. It's not the end of the story, it's a pause, an eternal margin where narratives can flow freely, waiting for someone else to write the next chapter. The two of them exchanged a glance and decided to chase after the pillar, but it was nowhere to be found. "Forget it, we'll wait for the next one," Subi sighed, too weary to waste energy. He and Ling Yu found a place to rest. Ling Yu wasn't one to slack off, but he didn't mind sitting still either, agreeing with the plan. They leaned against the walls, listening to the occasional chatter over the walkie-talkie. Suddenly, a female voice cut through the silence, asking if they were okay. Subi sensed her before she spoke but didn't react. As he opened his eyes to glance at her, he saw a woman in her 30s, sharp in appearance but looking a bit off. Her short hair was messy, her clothes torn and wrinkled, and she had bandaged wounds. When she saw him looking, she seemed to apologize, though she didn't leave, instead asking if they were new. Subi, not in the mood for small talk, cut straight to the point. "Do you need something?" Ling Yu had also opened his eyes by then and stood up, eyeing the woman with caution. She quickly explained, "Sorry, I've been stuck here for a while with no way out. Seeing you newcomers, I was hoping you knew how to get out." They were in a maze where the exit was the only way out if they didn't find it. They'd be stuck, no turning back. In a tense moment, Subi questions whether to trust the new ally despite her questionable state. She claims to have survived for days in a dangerous environment, yet remains curiously unscathed. Her actions seem suspicious. But Subi isn't quick to dismiss her. He discusses the possibility of using a virus with his teammate, Ling Yu, who confirms it could incapacitate the woman, but only after a day's incubation. Ling Yu, wary of their new companion's potential to cause harm, shares her concerns, but Subi remains resolute. The advantage of her experience outweighs the risk, he reasons, as long as she poses no immediate threat. With this in mind, Ling Yu prepares the virus, and the two of them cautiously extend their hands in cooperation, hoping the woman remains unaware of the infection spreading through her. Subi watches from a distance, confident that the virus is now at work. After 7 days of being trapped, the woman had survived by consuming Nightmare Beast meat and drinking their blood. Yet, her face and hands remained clean. Something felt off. Subi, however, wasn't concerned by her oddities. To him, as long as they could overpower her, she was no threat. Smiling, he asked, "Can I discuss it with my teammate first?" She nodded and stepped back. Once she was out of earshot, Subi turned to Ling Yu. "Can you use a virus that disables her on activation?" he asked. Ling Yu's gaze sharpened as she responded, "Yes, but it needs to incubate for a full day." Then, with a touch of disapproval, she added, "You know she's trouble, yet you want to team up?" Subi understood. Her concern preparing a virus meant he was staying cautious while still considering the alliance. "We're new here. A veteran's guidance will be useful, as long as she can't harm us," he said. Ling Yu paused before agreeing, preparing the virus. She approached the woman with a forced smile and extended her hand, saying, "Happy cooperation?" The woman eagerly shook her hand. "Happy cooperation." From a distance, Subi observed, knowing the virus had likely infected her. Ling Yu's ability was nearly impossible to avoid. Any contact with her could be fatal. In this mysterious world, 3 factions stand out. The solitary ability users, those who thrive on independence and self-reliance, and 2 others, conservatives and radicals. The conservatives are content to wait for rescue, while the radicals are more aggressive, hunting for clues that lead to an exit. But, as Subi soon learns, there is no simple way out. Exits exist, but they are tied to specific tokens, one of which is hidden within the queen, while clues to those exits can be found on the king. However, not everything is as it seems. The quest for these tokens may lead to benefits, such as exclusive items tied to this strange space. Yet, the more one destroys, the more one might discover about this world, a world full of secrets and unspoken rules. She paused, eyes sharp. "What piece did you encounter?" "A knight," Sube said, truthfully. That answer kept things simple. Sister Zhao, already aware of how the pieces moved, nodded. "Lucky. Knights are just fast. Pawns are the nightmare. They'll chase you until someone closer distracts them." Subi wasn't shocked. Of course it wasn't chess. This was a maze, twisted, alive, and unpredictable. "What about the other pieces?" he asked. Zhao didn't answer right away. She gave him that look, the kind that said, "You want intel? Pay for it." "Talking's made me thirsty. Got anything?" Subi got the hint. She wanted resources in exchange for knowledge, but he hadn't packed for a trap. Of the group, others like Mu Tiren or Zhao Zhaoyu might be better stocked, but Subi? 2 bottles, some rations, barely enough water for a few days. He had no plans to join a faction or drink monster blood. His refusal was subtle but firm. He wouldn't waste precious supplies on information he could uncover through experience. Sister Zhao's eyes gleamed with something unreadable, but she dodged the question, suggesting they consider the factions if supplies were running low. Ling Yu finally spoke, calmly probing. "Which faction would you choose?" A test to reveal Zhao's allegiance, since neither she nor Su betrusted her neutrality. Zhao evaded again, saying it depended on one's goals and abilities. Those good at surviving might suit the conservatives, but if one lacked practical use, they might not be accepted at all. Her tone subtly criticized the conservatives, prompting Subi to smile and joke that they had no choice but to join the radicals. Zhao flinched slightly but didn't pursue it, instead asking if they had teammates nearby, assuming they were students. Subi vaguely confirmed but gave nothing away, then shifted the mood. Time to move. As they got up, he glanced at their destiny compasses. Zhao's stable, but Ling Yu's hinted at trouble. They wandered the maze, stone chess pieces clattering nearby, though muffled by tall soundproof walls. Knowing luck wasn't on his side, Subi let Ling Yu lead, and she soon proved herself by sensing a target through the heavy, rumbling echo. The group stumbled upon a statue of a crowned woman in a dim corner, which immediately caught their attention. As soon as Sister Zhao laid eyes on it, her expression faltered. She quickly retreated, inspecting her hand, relieved to find it untouched. Her gaze shifted to Sube and Ling Yu, cautioning them to check for any marks. While Subi found nothing, Ling Yu noticed a strange black crown tattoo appearing on her hand. Sister Zhao's face darkened as she slowly backed away, her voice tinged with pity as she revealed that Ling Yu had been marked. When Ling Yu asked about the danger, Zhao explained the mark belonged to the queen, and those branded by it would be hunted by the king. The ominous presence of the king made it clear that danger was near, a formidable threat no less. Su, be pressed for answers about the possibility of removing or transferring the mark. Sister Zhao's hesitation was brief, before she stated that it couldn't be transferred, and the only way to rid oneself of the mark was by destroying the queen, though destroying the king would only cause the maze to spawn another in half an hour. She warned further that anyone getting too close to the queen would be petrified. Concluding her explanation, Sister Zhao looked at Subi with a grim expression, cautioning that staying with a marked person was nearly a death sentence. The 3 approached from around the corner, their eyes falling on a statue of a crowned woman. As soon as Sister Zhao laid eyes on it, her face drained of color. She quickly pulled back, checking her hand for any signs of a mark. Relieved to find it clean, she sighed and turned to Su Bei and Ling Yu with a warning. Check your hands. Su Bei found nothing, but Ling Yu's hand was marked with a black crown tattoo. Sister Zhao's face shifted to one of pity as she took a slow step back, her voice full of dread. You're marked. Ling Yu, unfazed, asked, what danger does this pose? Sister Zhao, with a trace of sympathy, explained without asking for anything in return. It's the Queen's mark. The king will hunt those who bear it. The king was clearly a major threat, a boss of unimaginable power. Su Bei pressed further. Can it be removed or transferred? Sister Zhao hesitated before answering, her eyes flickering. It can't be transferred. To remove it, you must destroy the queen. If you only kill the king, the maze will spawn a new one in half an hour. After a pause, she added, also, getting within 1 meter of the queen will petrify you. She looked at Su Bei, her expression grim. Marked people rarely survive. Staying close to her won't help. The rumble echoed once more as the king arrived. A stone carving of a faceless man crowned in majesty, charging straight for Ling Yu with unstoppable speed, just like the knight. Su Bei ducked into a corner, watching the giant pursue Ling Yu before sprinting after it, aiming for a sneak attack from behind. Yet, even with his enhanced abilities, his mortal hands couldn't break stone. Scanning with mental energy revealed nothing unusual. Thinking quickly, Su Bei called out to Ling Yu, urging, don't run too far. Lead the king in circles. I'll think of something. At first, he hoped to dodge toward the stationary. Queen! Letting the king crash into it to solve both pieces, but Sister Zhao's warning about petrification within a meter of the queen stopped that plan. The maze had only 2-meter wide passages, with the queen in the center, making such a plan impossible. However, luring another piece to strike the king could buy enough time for Ling Yu to recover. Shouting his new plan, Su Bei searched for more pieces nearby, but his luck ran out, finding nothing. Ling Yu had been turned to stone, and Su Bei came up with a risky yet brilliant plan. If they could destroy the queen, all its abilities, including petrification, would disappear. The plan involved Ling Yu being pushed behind the queen at just the right moment to ensure the king collided with it. The timing was crucial, as the king had lasers that could kill Ling Yu if it chose to attack. Su Bei was confident the plan would work, but it was up to Ling Yu to decide whether she was willing to take the risk. After a tense pause, she agreed, hoping Su Bei could push her precisely into the safe spot. The suspense was unbearable. And now, with the clock ticking, they had only one chance to pull off the perfect move. Su Bei knew a short rest was all it would take to regain some stamina, but it was only temporary. So, faced with the challenge ahead, he wondered if he should use his ability. A sudden flash of inspiration crossed his mind, and with a spark of excitement, Su Bei shared his plan with Ling Yu. The idea was simple, yet risky. Destroy the queen to erase its abilities, including the petrification effect. The trick was to make sure Ling Yu stayed hidden behind the queen as the king crashed into it, making the gap just wide enough for Ling Yu to slip through, but not the king. The timing had to be perfect, and the risk was high, especially with the king wielding lasers. A misstep could spell disaster. Ling Yu, determined yet cautious, agreed, trusting Su Bei's plan despite the uncertainty. The strategy was set, and now, all that was left was to wait for the king's next move. In the heart of the battlefield, Su Bei's plan hinges on one crucial move, using the queen to block the incoming laser. Untrained for such a task, they rely purely on instinct. Ling Yu, following Su Bei's lead, positions herself near the queen, transforming into stone as soon as she crosses the 1-meter line, giving Su Bei the space he needs to act. As the ground shakes, signaling the king is on his way, Su Bei realizes a major flaw. He needs to push Ling Yu just in time to trigger the collision, but how can he escape the aftermath? The king will likely obliterate the queen, but it's Su Bei who will bear the brunt of the impact. Gritting his teeth, he makes a split-second decision, grabbing Ling Yu and leaping to safety just as the king nears. The moment he crosses the threshold, his body begins to petrify, immobilizing him completely in a strange, paralyzing sensation. Just as Su Bei calculated, they landed right behind the towering queen. Success until a resounding bang cut through the air. The relentless king, too fast to stop, fired a desperate laser, but the queen stood in the way. The blast struck her instead, and in a violent crash, both colossal figures shattered into fragments and vanished upon impact. The petrification curse broke. Subi stirred, fingers twitching back to life. Lingyu, unaware of her frozen state, stood confused, asking why he was there. "Guess," Subi replied, uninterested in explanations. At the sight of the wreckage, he retrieved a lone remaining square stone and a green card etched with clues, clearly the token and an exit key. Ling, you produced her own card from an earlier battle with the king, and a white one from a pawn that had crashed during the chaos. Subi examined it. Tear to eliminate the nearest pawn piece, a single-use weapon, now irrelevant. He handed it back without comment, turning his attention to decoding the twin green cards. In a realm beyond reality, where forgotten characters drift like lost memories, Subi steps into the unwritten zone, a space where stories never finish and only echoes remain. Here, the narrative core, a self-repairing force, seeks closure by forcing a final chapter. But Subi, unbound by the plot, defies this fate. With no need for a traditional battle, he creates an endless loop, an anti-ending that rewrites itself with emotion, not structure. Characters reappear, not as themselves, but as fragmented versions of how they were remembered. Lan Subing, silent and incomplete. Feng Lan, leaving behind a prophecy without words. Wu Mingbai, whose laughter fills the void. Subi chooses to accept imperfection and untied threads, allowing the story to pause, forever caught between the frames. The manga doesn't end, it just becomes blank again. In a world beyond the narrative, Subi steps into a space where unfinished ideas and discarded characters float freely. Yet, something follows him into this unwritten realm, the narrative core, an entity determined to force a final chapter. As characters return, they are not themselves but echoes of how readers remember them. A silhouette, a smile without meaning, laughter turns static. Subi must face the idea of closure, but instead of fighting, he creates the anti-ending, a page that rewrites itself with emotion rather than plot. Rather than defeating the system, Subi lets it go, embracing imperfection and untied threads, leaving the manga blank once more, suspended between stories, not an end, but a pause. Joe Renji leapt into action, shouting they were on their way, his excitement barely contained. With a touch of strategy, he warned that if tokens were limited to one per person, someone would be stranded best to move together. They all agreed, heading to the southwest corner, the only place with a clear description. The maze made navigation difficult, but Si Xiaohua had the aerial advantage, flying up to trace the bird's path to the nest. As Subi weighed the situation, Lingyu, quiet until now, broke the silence with resolve. If only one could go, it should be Subi. Subi raised an eyebrow, responding with exaggerated flair, showering Lingyu in teasing praise. Her only reply a rare, pointed eye roll.